Good afternoon and welcome to the April 8th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting for the School District of Duluth. And I will hand it over to Mr. Bonds to get started. Oh, first we need roll call. Thank you.
Member Banks.
Here.
Member Derek Eater.
Here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp. Here. Member Lofald.
Here.
I'm here. Member Sadowski.
Here.
Member Williams. Here. Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Deputy Clerk Zunich.
Here.
Shannon Brown. Student representatives from ALC. Thank you. Student representative from Denfeld is excused, and our student representative from East. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk, for catching me. Now we will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you, Chair Eater, Derek Eater, that is. So good evening, everyone, and we are here for our COW meeting. It's a full agenda. So just really want to thank all of our presenters up front for all of their hard work for getting things ready. So the first presentation will be provided by me as well as our coordinator for American Indian Ed, Sheila White. She's here also to support. And I also have individuals in the audience who are part of the Teacher Learning Equity team. They're here too to also respond to potential questions that board may have. So the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee voted and issued a vote of non-concurrence on February 25th of 2025. State statute requires that the district provides a response within 60 days. And so we are 2 weeks shy of being in compliance. And so that's why we're here. You have been provided an initial draft of a response that the board will provide. And so I've had my team do some due diligence and provide a lot of information, taking very seriously the recommendations that our American Indian families have provided us. And so you have received that information last week. And so this is your opportunity to ask any questions. I did receive some questions from board members earlier, and they received some responses. So I will open up discussion to the board related to the draft of the recommendations for from the board as a response.
So, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, is there timelines attached to each of our recommendations? I think there is, like within, is it in a year span that we'll kind of work through? Okay,
That is correct.
thank you.
Member Sadowski?
I just wanted to say thanks for the thoughtfulness in this response and for answering the questions that we asked. We all got this within the last couple days and had a very thorough chance to review it. I know I read through all of it, and I just appreciate that. I also really appreciate the work of APEC with bringing these forth, these suggestions.
Member Meixel?
I would like some guidance on how we should go through these. Should we look at these like point by point? I apologize, I have did not have a chance to do an early deep dive just because of travel plans and family obligations. So I looked through this afternoon. So would it be beneficial if we went through these point by point and discussed, or just start popping out questions?
Whatever the board likes. So we could go by recommendation. So let's start there. Superintendent Magus?
Sure. There was a suggested change that we had based on Member Williams' feedback, and I don't see that reflected in the response to number 11. Has that been changed yet, or?
It will. It's part of the.
Okay.
It will be part of the final version. Mm-hmm. So let's start off with number 1 then. So the first recommendation, as you read, we made sure again that working with the team, we provided a thorough response to it. The APAC was requesting tours of sites where our American Indian liaisons provide support for our students. And they also asked that board members, as well as the advisory team, come along, as well as other interested parties from the indigenous community. So Coordinator White has already done some due diligence, as I've shared here, on setting up those tours, reaching out to the tribal community, and so things are underway. So any questions related to the first one? Member Banks?
Pardon me. So if the APAC is wanting us as board members to participate, will we get some kind of information related to suggested dates or several suggested dates and times? Because I know that we're quite busy, all of us. So how do we get that accomplished? Thank you.
I'm hoping to send the dates out by Friday. I do have 2 solid dates that were given to me by the liaisons, because I base it on when they would be available and when they don't have any events happening in the schools.
Chair Derek Eater?
Can I just get some clarification? Where are the sites that we have American Indian liaisons for students?
Your mic's not on. There it is.
Is it going to stay on?
Yep.
Okay. So we have East Denfeld. Oh, I just got Lincoln Park, and the elementary schools, Myers Wilkins, and Stoll. Is that the 7? I think that's 7.
But there, some of them are shared.
Yeah, there's 2 liaisons have 2 schools each.
Thank you for that. Sorry to put you
Sorry
on the
about that,
spot
I
like
just-
that. Don't. And just as a quick reminder, how long have you been with us?
January 13th.
January 13th, so this is very new, so I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
You know, just for reference to other board members, it's really listed, so we put you on the spot, Sheila, and I'm sorry, but you've got them listed under the tentative plans. There's 2 tour groups, the morning group, and the only one you left out was ALC, so, you know, yeah, and that one doesn't always roll off our.
Right, and that's a
our
new-
tongue. Yeah,
that's a
and
new
that's a new,
position.
yeah. And again, you know, I think all of us welcome those opportunities. I like how you've bunched up the, you know, there's a morning group with the West and the afternoon group, and some of us will be able to make one or the other or half of one. And so, but we appreciate the effort to do this. We've also embarked, not specifically on American Indian, but also visiting our campuses as well over the year. So we appreciate getting into the buildings.
Member Meixel?
Just briefly, I recognize that last year there was a similar recommendation, and I was just curious if our APAC committee members were able to go on tours at all last year, or if this will be starting for this year.
To my knowledge, there was 1 visit from 1 APAC member.
Great, well, I appreciate that we are working a little bit more to get some more of those formalized this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Recommendation number 2, requested an action plan by the 4th quarter to identify students who are Native and to consider any transportation needs they may have, and for the district to consider additional supports to getting American Indian students to school. So as you can see in the response, what we've indicated is in late April, we will by late April, we have a survey sent to all American Indian students and families, asking them about their, if they are experiencing challenges with transportation, so the district can then use that information for, to help us support families, you know, if we can, in any kind of way. So we will be, again, reaching out to families through surveys to get from them their ideas or challenges. Member Sadowski?
Yep, And then in my email, I had asked, that surveys, as we've heard, sometimes have limited responses. And so are we how can we cast a wider net? Can we also survey like teachers, paras, folks that work with students who, or can we do phone calls to families, things like that?
Well, we do have some information related to some of the, if students have challenges with attendance, right? If they are absent or often tardy. So our school already has data on students, and we are, as part of our attendance campaign, really doing a deep dive of trying to address attendance issues and provide incentives for students to come to school. So the answer is yes, we can do some of those. But regarding the survey, because the request is coming directly from our American Indian families, we want to make sure that we are very intentional on a strategic outreach just to those families, and we do have a means to do that. We have Parent Square and other resources that allows us to really send a survey or communication to all families who have identified themselves as American Indian. So we're going to have a targeted outreach and communication for that survey to be completed, so we can get that information. Member Williams?
So I guess kind of going off of that, I turned off my light because I thought we were asking the same question, but this is a little bit different. The means that you have mentioned, like I understand we're reaching our targeted group of students, but sometimes families don't always access information in those ways. So I was wondering if we can put the survey out where families are maybe getting resources, like at APAC or other service providers in the community? Is that a possibility, or does that feel like that's too broad and other people would take the survey? Is that the thought?
Yeah, the thought is, again, there's a lot of survey fatigue, and we want to make sure that we really have data that really shows us what our American Indian families and students are asking for or have challenges with. So that's why we're trying to really be strategic. We're going to leverage the resources we have. We have our homeschool liaisons. We have our integration specialists. We have ways in the schools to make sure that we provide those opportunities to families, using other events to make sure that they're aware so they can get access to the survey in case they don't use Parent Square or in case they don't use technology readily. So we have different ways of making sure they are aware of the survey and getting that data, if that's what you were asking.
Yes.
Member Banks?
Yes. So is this survey just for elementary and middle school, or will it be for high school? And the reason I ask that question, we already provide an additional expansion of transportation options at the high school level for all students. So where's the survey going to go? Is it all
It is all,
segments?
and clearly our elementary students probably more than likely won't fill it out, but it's going to go home to students and families, to get their feedback. So it's all American Indian students and families. Member Mixel?
I think you've mentioned it, but I just want to clarify. So our response says that we'll be asking families, but we don't specifically say American Indian families. So is that survey, just for the record, only going to our American Indian families, or is it going to all families in our district?
American Indian families.
Okay, excellent. And then when I think about students who might be having attendance issues, that could be, transportation could be a contributing factor. It seems as though our school staff, our liaisons, our interventionists may have already identified some of those kids. So I assume that'll be a way for us to contact and work with our staff to help get those surveys into those families' hands. Is that something that has already been thought of?
Yep,
and
that's
we're
part of the
working
plan, is to
Okay.
make sure we leverage those resources.
Because we now have many ways of gathering our data and pulling that data with our new systems and things like that. So hopefully we'll be able to identify those kids who are having attendance issues. But then also the students who are able to get to school every day who might not necessarily, we don't realize that they're really struggling to make it there, allowing them to answer those survey questions will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Derek Eater.
Ms. White, I just wanted to ask you, we've heard a lot of things about attendance and how we reach our Indigenous families. Do you have any additional thoughts around a survey or any ways that you feel that we could be working harder to reach those Indigenous families to check on their transportation needs? Is there anything you'd like to add?
I know it's a struggle to get our families to complete the surveys. So if we can get a lot of, people to help make phone calls. Our liaisons are really super busy. So can we utilize maybe teacher trainers, teachers in training? Like we'll need to talk more about that piece.
Thank you.
Member Lawful.
And that's exactly where I was going, is I like the word viability in our response, because really spending my time, my career in education and in the classroom, and I know that our home liaison, American Indian educators, are totally committed to what's going on in the building and their needs of all the other students. And I just don't know viability-wise. I mean, we can survey, we can see the needs, they know the needs, they know the students. They're probably already doing some of this transportation, as I see the vans going in and out when I'm there. So, we can kind of document that we are reaching significant students or some students, because I don't know the viability if our American Indian student wants transportation that particular day, but our home liaisons are already in class, already servicing students. Maybe it's a testing day, maybe it's another activity day that the instructionist is not there. So I like the word viability, and we will work and share and come back. But the vans, the vans could be used for other things. We all have a van now at our disposal, but they are used for many activities and events in our schools. But just wanted to throw that out there. I want the word viability in there, and I understand that we already are doing many of that, and maybe we can document that for our APAC families as well.
Yep, I appreciate that, and that's why we have it in our response as, viability, because while we respect the request, but not all things are possible. So we want to make sure that, we get that information. If there's things that we can do as a district to support our Native students and families with attendance, we're going to consider them. And you're right, you're spot on. What we try to also make sure we're communicating is that we are already have efforts underway to really, again, improve attendance in the school staff. I see Principal Tuscan is here and others are here. He would testify to that too, that we are really working hard to work with all students, but especially those who have challenges with attendance. So we do have our vans, some of our homeschool liaisons, our integration specialists, some other support staff. They have taken the test to be able to drive. So what happens with the use of the vans already is periodically, if a student that they're supporting has missed a bus or, needs to receive some kind of transportation help, they can pick up that student if they elect to do so. We have to be careful, and I was sharing this with another board member, we have to be careful with the van usage, because the vans are underneath the responsibility and work of our transportation department. And so there are contractual things to navigate with regards to using the vans in any kind of regular way, but there is support for us to use them to periodically pick up students, but not have it as a regular transportation daily option for those families. Member Lafleur-Kemp?
Yep, thank you. Thank you for being here, Sheila. I don't want to get too hung up on the vans, but you triggered a question. Are all of our liaisons able to drive the vans for pickup?
Any staff who decides or elects to receive the training to drive the van can drive the van.
Okay.
Superintendent Magus?
Thanks. And I just want to reiterate, as we've all alluded to some of the things that we're doing related to transportation, but when we think about improving systems, we are really trying to improve the access that people have, I won't use equity, but access, that we have for our students, because when we think about, we've decreased the radius for transportation and walking. We've added the high school DTA bus pass program. We've added the vans, and as Mr. Bonds pointed out, we can't, contractually, we can't have them set up for routes for picking up kids, but they can be used for intervention. We also have the bus hub system for the Masabakan programming. But we are always willing to and interested in looking at additional possibilities. But as Mr. Bond said, they're not always viable. One thing that some other districts have done, which we are not pursuing at this time, is having other students go pick up other students. Just because of some of the liability. I mean, I think if that happens informally, that's one thing. But if we're formally setting up a program where we're sending out students to pick up and drive other students, that could be problematic from a liability perspective. But we're more than interested in continuing to have an open ear to what those solutions are. And I think to what Member Sadowski and Member Williams and others have pointed out, sometimes a survey doesn't answer everything, and maybe having some more focus group conversations or getting all of our interventionists together and kind of do a root cause analysis and look at things, that might be other ways that we can do it as well.
Chair Derek Eater.
Just before we move in, as we're going through this whole process, Ms. White or Sheila, I just want to make sure I'm showing you the proper respect. Please, at any time, your voice is important here, so if there's anything that you want to say, please turn your mic on, and Assistant Superintendent Bonds, you're really here to reflect everything that's going on, and I encourage you to use your mic and speak with us. So I just wanted to, I should have said that in the beginning, but, so thank you again for being here.
All right, number 3, as you see, it calls for their recommended utilization of the coordinator, which we have our coordinator, Sheila White, and various community members in the district community, such as ACO and local tribe, to really vet some of our professional development. And so Sheila White has been working with our coordinator for professional development, Annie Schilling, to discuss our professional development that we're providing. They will continue to collaborate on professional development opportunities, making it very clear to our families and our APAC families that all professional development that we are offering, it is paid for out of the general dollars that we have as a district, so I'll make sure that that's very clear. And we will continue to do that. And the dollars that are available for or through the American Indian Ed grant can provide additional professional development if done so, or elected, if the coordinator elects to do so. Would you like to add anything?
Sorry. Yeah, we've been planning for about a month now, thinking about the theme for next year, thinking about the last PD day, and, bringing in some of the cultural components to our final professional development day for the whole district. So it's going to be awesome.
Member Williams?
I guess I am asking this just for clarification for everybody, like public and otherwise. Professional development opportunities are required? That's a question, sorry. I have follow-up questions, so I have stuff funny, sorry. Are they, are these professional development things required that we're discussing right now?
Yes, it's an expectation as part of the school district, and we use our professional development days to advance a lot of our key priorities, including the learning of indigenous people and culture and history.
So
yes.
so they are required of all staff, like certified or not, full-time or part-time, right? And then if a staff member were to miss a professional development day, particularly when we're focused on indigenous issues, is it required that that be made up?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And that's like many of our training and professional development days, there are not requirements that there's a makeup for that training that they may miss, even if it's related to math or reading. If they missed a training or absent for a variety of reasons, there's not a requirement to make that up. We try to encourage folks to go back and review the resources if available. And I just want to make sure we're clear on this, and I know you're not using it that way. Our professional development is an expectation because we have embedded professional development that the district is providing and requiring of staff, and it's not, but it's not a contractual requirement or expectations contractually. So I'm just trying to make the distinction. There's nothing in the contract that says they must do X, Y, or Z in some contracts. Superintendent Magus?
No, I just think about how the use of our special development, our professional development funds through Title II are facing additional scrutiny now, and just wanted to point out for the board and the public that Commissioner Jett from the Minnesota Department of Education made a pretty strong stance on that today, basically saying that they wanted to reiterate that this programming is important to us and remains important. You know, when we think about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings, that as a state, Minnesota is standing behind that. And so I just wanted to reaffirm as superintendent, and I'm sure the board feels the same, that this is vital to us, and I think this is a clear example of why this type of training is important, because it's important for us to have an ability to challenge our own perspectives and gain new understanding of how we can better serve students. And in certain aspects, that's the way that we need to have that type of training. So we need to be thoughtful around that and making sure we navigate that on uncertain water with care. But I found it affirming that our commissioner stood behind us in that.
Thank you. Number 4 addresses the retention and recruitment of staff, especially American Indian staff. We provided below, Sheila White has been working with and will continue to work with our Human Resources Department on a plan. You have been provided, or there's a link for an initial plan that has been drafted by Executive Director Severance. Actually, Executive Director Severance is meeting with you want to discuss when you're meeting with them? Because it's this week.
Thank you. Yes, we are meeting with the APAC tomorrow and to go over the plan. They were sent to the plan on April 1st with some revisions that we made after speaking with Sheila White related to some of the strategies, and look forward to hearing their input tomorrow. And there will probably be some additional changes to the draft document before we put something out final. We did receive other comments, not only from when we presented it to you, but I've also gone to the EAC. So there are some other things that will probably change along the way just based on their recommendations.
Just a thank you to that timely taking a look at this when it was presented to us on February 25th, and then already now scheduled on April 1st, got out a plan before that. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Ranks?
Sure, just a quick question. So I know the workload is pretty deep, and wondering, are there other people working with you, Ms. White, on this? And if not, what would you recommend?
Well, all of us are part of the team here. Yeah, so the liaisons, I count on them a lot. And we've been working together. We meet once a month. I, have conversations with them constantly. We also have other teams, the cohort team, and we meet periodically. I meet with finance once a week. I meet with HR biweekly. I meet with the PD department. So, we're all a big, huge team under this, yeah.
Member Meixel?
You may have just alluded to this, but when I look at this recommendation from our APAC partners, I see that them very much wanting to have information and asking for very specific information. And so curious if going forward, we'll be able to provide that to them on a more routine basis. So it's not just a once a year, can you please, share this with us? But it sounds as though with our infrastructure now in place and people in these positions, that might be something that we're then able to provide them on a more regular basis, so they're not feeling as much in the dark. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yep, that is correct. And just a reminder for the community and just for the board as well, there's been a leadership change in the department. There's been 3 coordinators over the course of the year, and I'm really, really happy Sheila has joined us this year. She comes with a wealth of experience and expertise, and so we're just really happy she's here. We wanted her to stay here as well. And so just wanted to make sure everyone is aware. There has been a transition, and the coordinator's role is to make sure there's great communication between our family committees, because we have multiple family committees, and the district. So she serves as our primary role to make sure that communication is happening, information, and she is working with teams, and that's why we identified not just her. I have identified, or we've identified, others that will support her in this work, so she's not alone.
Yeah, my name is written a lot on this document.
Member
It's
Lockwood
not
Kemp?
just me.
Ms. White, I'm really glad to hear, too, that you feel you have a lot of support within these different teams. I imagine, and maybe I didn't hear, that the principals from each of the 7 schools you probably work very closely with as well. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. I haven't met all of them yet, but I will eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Superintendent Magus, and then Member Lawfold.
Sure, I would say, to that point, we are always looking for ways to improve and make sure that we have greater transparency and access to information. I would say that and I'm super grateful for Ms. White and the work you're doing. I think it's amazing. And I would also say that the team as a whole has worked to try to provide frequent information too. I was just chatting with Simone there for a minute. There's been a lot of questions about financial information, and Simone has met with members from APAC no less than like 8 times this past semester. And so we want, our books are open, and we've also said with the state if they would like to come in and work with us too, to have an audit of everything. We have nothing that we're trying to hide. I think it's important for us to make sure that we have everything out there, and just transparency is good, and making sure that people feel welcomed. I remember initially there was questions about, do we need to ask for this with a data request? And no, we're working in partnership, and sometimes there are things that are data requestable, but if we're working in partnership, we should just be providing that information. We'll continue to do so, but it's been even better with Ms. White, and I just want to say, get your miigwech for all the work that you're doing.
Miigwech.
Would it be fair, though, to say, and I know this will sound defensive, and I don't mean for us to be defensive. We've got great leadership, and we're on the right path, but would it be fair to say that there are significantly new parents in our APAC as well? And so these questions are honest questions, that they haven't always been given this information. We have had questions, we have answered these questions, in past years. I've been on the board 8 years and have gone through concurrence and non-concurrence every time. And it is, and there's some questions that keep coming up, but the bottom line is, there's a parent turnover as well. So it's just a great opportunity, though, for going. Then I just want a point of clarification for board members. I love going point by point. I think every one of these are interesting, but we've already spent 40 minutes, and we have 16 of them. So I don't know if we want to, again, maybe see if there's ones we want to highlight. Or put a time limit and how many we get to, and that would be okay too. Like, I wouldn't mind going 4, 5, 6, and at 5:30 we say, maybe there's 5:25, there's one more I really want to see. Otherwise, I think we'll be here, and we've got other presentations tonight. We can also come back to another meeting. I don't know. What do you, just some clarification on where we want to go.
Whatever the pleasure of the board. Just a reminder that I want to make sure that we meet our 60-day statutory requirement. So this meeting is meant to receive all feedback, any updates or modifications or concerns. This gives us a platform to talk about them. But obviously, we can continue to have that dialogue via email and other ways. And then the board will be provided the final draft for consideration. So again, I serve at the pleasure, and so Chair Derek Eater, how would you like us to proceed?
I had sort of had us on a time of about, just at about 5:30. I was going to just sort of, so if we are all comfortable with another 20 minutes, does that sound reasonable to everybody? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, Member Lowfeld. So I think we can move on with that.
All right, sounds good. Recommendation number 5 is regarding funding that has been earmarked for various programs, especially our Denfeld cohort, and so you see a response there. We have been working with the coordinators, Doreen and Sheila White. She lives on everything because she's one of the coordinators who's working with others as well. But we do have a coordinator who is also there to support the Denfeld cohort that is that has been implemented this year. And so they have worked really hard to come up with the responses that are provided below. So any questions related to the response to number 5? Okay.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds, I do have one quick question.
Member Mixel?
So just wanting to clarify, APAC said that they hadn't been made aware of the funding that had been earmarked, and so it sounds as though we've been transparent, and have we provided that information to them in a different route than these responses?
Yes.
I don't see that number listed here. Okay.
Yep, they have received all information related to the funding as well as the staffing associated with the cohort and all of the staffing associated with all of our American Indian funds that we receive. So which positions are supported by the district, which funds are supported by the grant? Would you like to share anything related to that?
Yeah, they, we provided them with charts.
Put your mic on. Put your mic on. Your mic.
Sorry. We provided them with a chart that lists all, if there's state aid, if they're federal, and then district.
Great, and I see one of our other responses they had a number of recommendations within that recommendation 5, asking for program guidelines, or we state that we'll be providing program guidelines to students and caregivers for that cohort program. And so I just wanted to make sure that those are in existence and we've been able to provide those.
Yes,
And those have been shared with APAC, you said?
yes,
Yeah,
it's
they-
probably
they're
bullet
not-
number, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're actually presenting that tomorrow
Wonderful.
during the APAC meeting.
Great, thank you so much.
I think I asked this before in another update, but how many students right now do we have in the Denfeld cohort? And can students be added at different times throughout the year?
We're all looking at Tom.
Right now, there are 11 students. And I think at this point, we discussed about new students entering. They can review the students that were in the program that left and want to return. But at this point, we're at the end of the year. I don't think it would, be a good idea to do that. I don't know, maybe Tom can speak on that. I can't remember when we talked about this.
I probably shouldn't speak from the back of the room, so.
Yeah.
So we added some students at semester time. So at semester time, there was kind of a reboot of the Indigenous cohort. And that was just due to essentially learning from the first semester, kind of how things went. There's going to be a report given at APAC this week about the Indigenous cohort as well. One of the things you're going to learn is, for example, ninth grade students have not been a good fit. 10th graders have been the best fit. We've seen some progress at 11th graders as well. So long answer short, there are times we can answer or add kids. We added some at semester, and they've kind of been added sporadically based on circumstance. But part of the learning that's gone on doing this for the first year is what kind of students are you looking for? What does the commitment have to look like from the student and the family? And then when are the natural points you're going to transition? And typically those are going to be quarters and semesters, so you can make those changes with student schedules on their way in or on their way out.
Is requesting that there's a prioritization for the hiring of American Indian liaisons and staff for the department, or coordinator that is. And so as I indicated here, that I've been working with, in communication with our Human Resources Department to discuss the filling of a permanent position. Sheila joined us in the middle of the year. It was posted as a temporary position, temporary full-time position, but there is plans to have a full-time position posted real soon. And we've been actually in conversations on what that will look like. Also, there are other positions that one was open. Sheila, you want to speak to the positions that have been open and filled?
So there was another homeschool liaison position added, or posted, sorry, on March 17th. And the deadline was March 31st. That was extended because of the lack of applicants to today, actually. So we'll see what happens.
And also, as you see, as part one of the bullets, you know, our goal is to make sure that we are really communicating with our APAC with the data. That's why Director Severance has been, you know, working on a plan. We have data as it relates to our postings and positions, and we're going to make sure that things are handled, you know, with due diligence, and those postings happen right away. She will also be looking at the caseloads that our American Indian liaisons have to cover, and so she will be reviewing those things as indicated here by discussing with the liaisons and getting their input on their capacity and what they believe is doable for them. So it's under review. So that's part of the coordinator's role, is to, you know, determine how many students will be supported by the American Indian liaisons. That's Sheila's role, and so she'll be reviewing that and making some determination. Member Williams?
Had to think about it for a second, didn't you? So our liaisons and/or, I shouldn't say and/or, or parents or APAC members, are they a part of interview teams? Have they been, or can they be?
Yes.
Okay.
And may I?
Yep.
And piggybacking off of Member Williams, so of APAC parents, are they eligible to apply for these positions as well?
Yes, if they meet the qualifications and it's a position that they are interested in, yes. Member Mixel?
Thank you. I appreciate all the recruitment and retention strategies that we've incorporated in this response. When I look at a similar recommendation that we received last year, and our response at that time was that the MZE state aid had increased in allowing us to hire additional American Indian liaison positions. And so I was curious, was that able to happen? Have we been able to maintain those positions then as well going forward?
That position is the additional position that's now at ALC-AEO.
Okay.
It was not moved on. Again, there was a lot of transitions at the very beginning of the year, so that position was not filled at that point in time, but it is filled now.
Great. Thank you.
Member Sadowski, and then Shannon's doing a great job of helping me out, keep up with who's next. Member Sadowski.
So, related to hiring, retention, can you, Ms. White or Assistant Superintendent Bonds, or maybe our HR department, speak to any retention strategies that we're using to retain our American Indian staff. For question 2, I had kind of asked, I think it was 2 or 4, I had talked about exit interviews, and I know that we don't collect like demographic data, I guess, on the exit interviews, so I was just curious to see how we are working to retain our American Indian staff.
I'll talk about some of those strategies, but Teresa, do you want to share just some of the collection of the exit interview data? And I know we've recently received some, but I'll just turn it over to you and you can discuss the data and what's collected.
Yeah, in the response questions that Assistant Superintendent sent, and you should all have access to it now, there is the response, and again, we don't collect race data when we're doing this, so this is just based on all the respondents and a summary of that. So typically when we get response, and sometimes we're doing them in person, so we're speaking to the leadership in that area if we have concerns. A lot of times it's just, I was moving out of town, but sometimes there's something more concerning, so we try to get more information or at least bring it to their attention. And I would say that's in general for everybody in the organization, so we're not necessarily using it as a, hey, do better with this, but what can we do to address this? Just making them aware, more of an awareness of that. And then from retention strategies, we are in our retention and recruitment policy that we're putting out now, there are some things that we're going to be doing, but that we haven't been doing a great job of. Getting out to the sites, making sure that people are aware what HR can do, also working on better onboarding processes, and I think that's a big part of the retention that we've seen over and over again in every area, that people are just feeling like they're not getting the tools they need to be successful. So really focusing on that right now and actually moving forward so that we have a full onboarding for every building, every site, every position, and kind of really honing in on what does that individual in that position at that location need to know in order to do their job well. And if they have multiple, for example, the liaisons work at a site, so they have a principal and they have leaders there, and then they also have Sheila, and what does that look like, and how do we work together to make sure they're supported from both the day-to-day at the site and then from their supervisor who doesn't always see them every day. And so trying to really make sure that we're having thoughtful conversations about how can we support the employee in kind of that big picture, as well as providing some mentorship. We're looking into how we do that. Just had a meeting yesterday actually with our paraprofessional union and going to do some roundtables to kind of get an idea of what they've experienced for their onboarding and what can we do better to help support that. And the liaisons fall into that para group, but so do many other positions that we want to make sure have what they need depending on what they're doing for each of the sites and each of their roles, because they are very different. In the paras especially, you have a vast difference of what they do every day. So we want to make sure that we're really hearing from all the people to make sure that we're doing what we can.
Great,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you. Yeah.
And I'll add some of the other things that just really quick. I know one of the things that we are doing, and it may not be within the Department of American Indian Ed, but it's in the Department for Achievement Integration. Part of its plan is to look at various groups. We're looking at infinity groups. There's outings that are happening. We're reaching out. It may not be necessarily just for American Indian staff, but it's for affinity groups for students, or staff of color. And it just have to be staff of color only as well. So there's just strategies to really just make sure people are feeling part of, connected, feeling included, have a community within the district that they can talk to and have conversations. So we are implementing other strategies to make sure staff feel included and connected in different ways, not just our American Indian staff. Member Lawford Kemp and then Member Lowfold.
Just a question on the exit interview summary. One of the questions was, what would you say the district does well? And what was listed was positive and supportive staff work environment, benefits and training. And then there was a follow-up question on what can the district improve on with three different areas: communication and transparency, support and compensation for staff, especially paras, and addressing student behavior issues in classroom management. Were those categories identified by us? Or were they identified by people?
They were identified by us by looking at all the responses are narrative, so kind of doing some scrutiny on what are the common themes, and then these were the top 3 in each of the areas that had similar.
Okay, great, thank you.
We are coming up at, what time is it, 5:25? So if we could just take probably the last 5 to 10 minutes. I don't want to rush this. This is a very important conversation. But we do, to Member Lofald's point, have quite a bit on the agenda, so.
So recommendation number 7, request that counselors implement a plan to identify resources for American Indian students, especially as it relates to scholarship opportunities and so forth. So that's what is being requested, just to make sure that they know, obviously, about their career choices and that they're connecting with staff. So Jen Larver, who's the director of secondary, and I always bring in Sheila because, you make sure that they are working in concert to ensure this is happening, because in our high schools, we have counselors, right? And we also have career centers and so forth that are available, just making sure that those places are really intentionally reaching out in different ways to our American Indian students and families to make sure that they are aware of those opportunities. So just trying to make sure we enhance that with them. Member Williams?
Yeah, in the response specifically to number 7, the very first bullet point about the identification of the students in regards to their tribal nation, I do know that is, you can't put your tribal nation on Infinite Campus, but those questions are asked on the JOM and Title VI forms. And so is there anybody looking at those forms and flagging like what nation these students belong to and coordinating that information with counselors? I know that's a lot of extra work since that information, again, is not readily available on Infinite Campus, but that information is available to our staff. So
I actually had that same question, talking with other districts. It is a possibility that we can do that on Infinite Campus. It's just going to be a process.
No, I just wanted to say, we did receive other feedback from board members too, as far as crafting the response. There was a question about one of our responses that we thought it would be a good idea to get Member Williams' feedback on, and so that isn't necessarily reflected yet in this document, but those are things that we're going to be changing, and we'll also make changes in this. This is intended as a draft, but that's part of the reason for this conversation, is to make sure that if there isn't something stated the way it should be, or if there's other feedback, that we take that. After this, it does become a little challenging to seek, what is the common ground on something, because we can't have a walking quorum where we're sharing a document back and forth or things like that, but we are very open to listening to the center and making sure that this document is grounded in what you feel as a board is an appropriate response. Currently we have 636 American Indian students in the district, so it's a sizable population. And I would also say that I want to reiterate that we remain very dedicated to serving every student, each and every student every day, and in particular, students who have been historically underserved. And I recognize on behalf of the district that the district and the country have done a very poor job of educating American Indian students over time. And we are seeking, and there have many people who have been working hard on this for years, but we continue to work as hard as we can to close these gaps and address the needs.
Member Marxell?
Also one question and make one point. So speaking to this recommendation, talking about making sure our American Indian students are made aware of the scholarships and career training that are available to them, especially as descendants. I recognize that we have made an investment, some professional developments in different programs so that our staff can be more aware of what's available to the students. But not very many of our homeschool liaisons have had an opportunity to take part in that training. And so hopefully we as a district are providing encouragement and opportunities for that to happen going forward. Is that a safe thing to say that will be happening going forward then?
Yes, that's an expression. That's one of the responses that I provided, which is to say that working with our, again, Director Larva and Coordinator White, we're going to ensure that our liaisons are made fully aware that it's available and that we find time for them to receive that training.
Okay, because right now it says training will continue to be shared. It doesn't talk about making sure they have a time to do it. So I just wanted to make that clear. And yes, I recognize that we're coming up to our self-imposed deadline. I also agree with the superintendent. This is a very important conversation. We've, like, state statutorily have to be having these discussions, have to provide this response. Last year, we talked about, or it was mentioned in this meeting, that potentially having a separate special meeting just to concentrate on this so that we can be doing our due diligence. And I encourage and would be welcoming further conversation about that for future years or for next year's. Because I do feel if we're all putting our name at the bottom of this report, that these are important conversations to have publicly.
Member
Can I
Banks?
just, piggyback on that and just say, we can come back to this too. We can listen to our other presenters and give them the opportunity to be, to present to us in a timely fashion. And if we feel like we want to come back and address the rest of these or maybe look at a few of them, we could do that as well.
Just a clarification question. You mentioned 60 days. Where are we at with regard to that?
I know it's by the end of this month. That's why I want to make sure that at the next board meeting, I think it's the May 20th, somewhere around there, that we have to make sure it's completed by. So we're just trying to make sure we hit that deadline. So I know that the next opportunity for the board to see this, the final draft, is at the board meeting. So by the end of this month. Chair, what is the pleasure of the chair?
So we are on recommendation 8, correct? So I think I can't make this final decision, but I would say maybe that we take some time. Do we want to continue this discussion when we have it at the full board meeting, when we see the final? Or are there things, I guess I'm looking to the board to see what they're interested in. Member Sadowski?
I think it would be great if we could at least pause the discussion right now. Like Member Lofald said, here are other presenters who are waiting to present, and then we can kind of maybe circle back after that.
Coordinator White, is that something that works in your schedule? I don't want
Does
to,
that work for you?
I don't want to also inconvenience you as well.
I'm sorry, I just checked out for a
Oh,
minute.
no.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Are you here, available to be here for the next couple of hours?
Yes.
Are you sure? Okay, I'm not trying to put you, but I just
no,
want
no,
to be
I'm sure
very
I can st-
respectful.
I can stay.
Okay. All right, so I think on the suggestion, how do other board members feel about that? Comfortable?
I support that. I think, again, as we've all stated, it's an important discussion, and we're obviously have a lot of questions, and that's important that we're hearing from everybody involved, so.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds, does that work for you?
It works.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Coordinator White. We will move through the rest of the agenda and then come back. I appreciate your willingness to work with us. Thank you.
So up next, we do have a presentation from our principal of Denfield High School, Tom Tuskin. And he has someone with him, Jennifer Bunitz. They are here to share some information related to our bar program, and I'll turn it over to them right away so they can begin. Welcome.
Nice to see you. Thank you. turn that mic on?
Oh, yeah, the green for your mic. Thank you.
Part of this is going to be onboarding because not everyone is up to speed on BAR, so we have to kind of do that first briefly. So if you have any questions, jump in as we go so we can clarify anything for you. So we'll do a little brief history of what BAR is, and then we will get into some data and some outcomes from that data that we've had over the last year or so. But at the same time, just jump in whenever you need to. So Denfeld has been doing BAR for a long time. In fact, this is the second time we've done BAR. We did BAR before it was called BAR. We were actually trained initially at St. Louis Park, where this was founded back in '98. Interestingly enough, you see BAR in a lot of schools in ninth grade. We have it in ninth grade, we have it in 10th grade as well. But that's where it started in St. Louis Park. They were looking at ninth grade failure. It was a guidance counselor who went to her principal and said, we got a problem. And he said, figure out how to fix it. And she did. Angie Jerebick, and it's now a nationwide, and we'll get into that a little bit. As you can see, 360,000 kids in 24 states, including DC, and 350 schools. And Denfeld is definitely an OG. Like, we are an old BAR school. We're really well known in BAR. We do a great job with BAR. That is due to Jenny Wellnitz as our coordinator. But essentially, it is very similar. Like, oftentimes people say, what is BAR? And I say it's very similar to what you'd look at in a middle school model, which is creating cohorts or teams of kids, matching them with teachers, and then those teachers meet weekly, look at real-time data about those kids, often centered around course failure, and then look at how to intervene for those kids to reduce our failure rate. That's it in a nutshell. So it's real-time data. It's also based on relationships. There's an SEL curriculum with BAR called iTime. We've been doing SEL forever in this district through BAR. And so you're building those soft skills and those human connections and relationships in BAR through that iTime, because of course teachers are encouraged to be full participants in an iTime. So they are fully participating. Not only are they leading those lessons, but they also have opportunities to pair up with students and be vulnerable themselves. And so if you ever make it out to Denfeld, and many of you do, it would be worth your while to coordinate with us so you have a chance to sit in and see those iTime lessons, because we do take intentional time to do those lessons. It's once every 3 weeks in ninth grade and once every 4 weeks in 10th grade, but we also apply our SEL iTime curriculum to 11th and 12th grade as well. So that's BAR in a nutshell. Teams of kids with teams of teachers looking at real-time data, building relationships. And the whole thing was also based on the 40 developmental assets from the Search Institute as well. So it is, when you say building assets, reducing risks, that's where that comes from, because you're looking at protective factors as well as risk factors. All right. So besides real-time data and relationship building, you can see the 8 interlocking strategies up on the board. It focuses on the whole student. If you talk to our BAR coach, Angie Johnson, she'll tell you that we are probably one of the best BAR schools she sees that know our kids. Like, when they come to evaluate us and sit in, she is always really surprised at how well we know our kids. So it is focusing at the whole student. It is providing professional development. Based on our contract with BAR, which we'll get to down the road, we get to get new teachers that are new to BAR trained every year as part of that contract, which is great. Because we're a national BAR School of Excellence, we also get to send a couple staff members in addition to us to the National BAR Conference, which is great because they get exposed to all kinds of ideas from other BAR schools, but it is also a nice way to put some charge back in their batteries as well to continue to do the work. Talked about the iTime curriculum already. We talked about the team or cohorts of students. They have regular meetings, which we'll talk about a little bit more in more detail. It's not called Risk Review anymore. Now it's called Community Connect, but essentially that would be like your student support teams or your SSTs. So essentially BAR is like 3 tiers. It's like multi-tiered systems of support. You have teachers doing the work at tier 1 level. When they have their block meetings with Jenny and our assistant principals and our 9th grade counselors, that essentially is a tier 2 level. And by the time it gets to Community Connect or Risk Review, you're talking about supporting kids at a tier 3 level, which is very individualized. Engaging families in student learning. We could go into that in depth, but we do a lot of work around that, especially this year, trying to get our families to support their students, which they are very eager to do. So we do a lot of communicating around that to reduce those barriers. And then engaging administrators, which is me, but is also our assistant principals who work on this. And really, when we get down to this farther, that's why we're here, because part of this is making sure that the school district's aware of what we're doing, so they can support that mission as well. And I'll let Jenny take over. At this point, she's going to talk you through some data.
Okay, so I'm just going to share, what we focus on is our 9th and 10th grade. So what our data is looking at right now is our 9th and 10th grade failure rate for the year. And when I'm referencing failure rate, what I mean is that the students with one or more classes that they did not pass. So a student could have one class that they didn't pass in a quarter or semester, or they could have 4 or more, and they're all in the same data. So in our first quarter, and you can see our 9th and 10th grade was at 34%. In the second quarter, our 9th grade jumped up to 44. 10th grade was at 34%. And so that 44% right there was a big jump that was not normal for us. That what then led to our 9th grade semester failure rate being at 38%. And I'll talk on the next slide about what we traditionally are at. And the 10th grade stayed at 33%. We are now in our third quarter. The grades are due tomorrow, so we'll have some data for you soon. But that 44%, like I said, was a blip, or it caused a red flag that led to some interventions, which I'm going to talk about later. So if we can go to the next slide. So some historic data to know that prior to BAR coming to Denfeld, our 9th grade failure rate was around 49%, which is why it was brought to Denfeld to address that. With BAR, prior to the pandemic, and I think it was 2016-ish that we brought BAR back to Denfeld, those numbers then went down to about 30 to 35% with our 9th grade. Of course, during the pandemic, those rates shot back up to between 50 and 60%. And then since the pandemic and being back full-time, we have been able to bring those numbers back down to 30 to 35%. One of the biggest interventions that we have done for years is what is called our pause days, and some of you are familiar with those. It's a really simple concept in which towards the end of a quarter or a semester, about the 3 weeks leading up to it, our core BAR teachers had the opportunity to sign up on a schedule where they will then identify the students that are well on their way to having a passing percentage for that quarter or semester. Myself or others will then come gather up those children, and we, in partnership with our media center specialists, we bring them down to the media center, and they have the opportunity to either have some free time, or most of them actually end up working on other schoolwork. The students who are not quite passing at that time then have the opportunity to work and have some more intentional just attention from the teacher at that time to get themselves to passing. So with that intervention that we have done for probably 7 or more years, we are able to, in the weeks leading up to the quarter semester ending, bring our failure rate down to by 15% historically. So we continue to do the pause days, but we also decided to kind of take those a step further this year. So we can go to the next slide. So here's one of the great things about BAR and constantly looking at the data and constantly having those meetings in which the teachers and the support staff and all involved are using those real-time relationships and what's happening within the building is that we've gotten really good at taking the data and moving really quickly on it and coming up with interventions. So just this year, what that has led to is our Academic Skills for Success, which was offered in 11th and 12th grade. We found a need for our sophomores to also take part in that intervention. So through Tom's work and with our 10 through 12 counselors, they were able to create a section for our 10th graders. So our sophomores who have some credits that they maybe need to recover and also need some extra support in staying caught up with their current coursework are enrolled in those. We also brought the first semester 9th grade second chance recovery, credit recovery program this year. So on February 12th, during the Opportunity Day, students in the 9th grade, because remember how I said that 44% was not our traditional number, something was going on and we had to address it. So this was our answer to bringing that failure rate down for our first semester 9th graders. So students that had not passed a semester class and they were in that 50 to 59% were identified. Teachers were asked to then identify what it was that the student needed to complete in order to get to a passing class
which our teachers did. And then on a day in the media center, we had those students come down. And there was a lot of work put into that. Tanya Jackson, our assistant principal, made a lot of individual phone calls home to all the kids that were identified. We had tutors and support staff and teachers throughout the day working on this, and the students were then given their work, and they went to it until they completed what needed to happen, and we were able to recover 45 semester credits in that one day from our freshman class. So then moving into the third quarter, we, after taking some feedback from teachers, we moved it to happen before the third quarter ended. So once again, same concept, identified students who were not passing a class and they were still in that 50 to 59% currently. Same idea. 75% of those kids that were identified did participate, and we're going to find out how that all shook out in the next couple days. Because the first semester credit second chance recovery was so successful, some of our other teams then picked it up and brought the second chance credit recovery for students in grades 10 through 12. Same idea, only this was held over spring break, so this just happened, and that's with partnership from ICO and the Neighborhood Youth Services. So that was held off-site, and those students from the early reports, and this isn't solidified yet, but 61 classes, semester classes were recovered during that time for our 10th and 12th graders. So some really big, massive interventions have been happening because of our bar data. Again, everything that we're doing right now is only happens because of the collaborations that we have with our community schools and our other partnerships in our community. It's anything that we are doing at Denfeld with this is an all hands on deck, and it takes a lot of massive effort, but there's a lot of will behind it as well. So, all right. Dylan?
So just to highlight something about those credit recovery, things that's happening inside the school year, you're talking about every semester credit that's recovered represents a kid that would normally go to summer school for 3 weeks to do the same thing. And we're doing them in the span of about one school day with the ninth graders, or when we did it off-site over spring break at ACO and NYS, also during one day at each one of those sites. But think about that. That's one kid in a classroom for 3 weeks to get a half credit. We're doing that because they're finishing the work that they didn't get completed or needed to get completed in a school day or in one day at ACO or NYS. It's dramatic, and it was BAR that kicked this off with the ninth graders, and then as soon as it happened with the ninth graders, we sat there and said, well, now what about the 10th through 12th graders, and that spawned that. Think about 30 kids showing up during spring break over the course of 2 days, 2 different locations, and recovering up to 61 classes. And the bottom line is this, our teachers give us a lot of, they trust us because we ask them to do some crazy things. Like, hey, we know you're just about ready to be done with your quarter and your grades. Can you find some work for kids between 50 and 59? And sometimes the response is, do you know what I've already done to get the kid to 50 to 59 and try to get them across the finish line? And yet they roll up their sleeves and they do it because we're asking. So we use a lot of relationship capital and trust in these programs to get our teachers to play ball because they've been playing with these kids and really hustling and working. And yet we're asking them to go one step further, and they do, even though it can be really hard. So I wanted to highlight that.
Member Banks?
Yes.
Member Banks?
Just need clarification for a moment here. So I know the disparity issues or concerns are glaring in ISD 709 East and West. That concerns me, but I appreciate everything that you all are doing. Is any of this going on at East High School in any way, or is it just at Denfeld?
Academic skills for success classes happen on both sides of town.
Okay.
Opportunity days happen on both sides of town, but they don't have BAR, and so they don't have the same access to the data and the staff that we do. Like, no.
Okay.
So some of it is, the majority of it is not, because it is coming directly out of our BAR program.
Okay, and the follow-up question. So because Denfeld has a significant number of children of color, can you talk about the impacts with regard to children of color that are in this program?
Do you want to speak to that as far as what the student population looks like? This is essentially harvesting kids between 50 and 59 across the entire spectrum in ninth grade. regardless of demographics, same thing in 10 through 12. I will tell you it was intentional. We've done 2 different breaks now. The first break in February, there was also a day at ACO and at NYS, primarily to work with kids on getting work done. But then we thought we would change that to more of a credit recovery option this spring break, just because like if we're gonna have kids meeting us to get work done, then let's make it more impactful for them. And those are often many of our students of color, although not exclusively. And that is part of the intentional effort by staff in our building to build relationships with our communities and get out of the building to go where our kids are. And ACO and NYS have been more than gracious to host and help. So no, it's not exclusively students of color at either one of those locations. Many of them are. All right, so data analysis leads to other innovations. So last year, can you go back one slide for me? Thanks. So last year, part of why we ended up landing on an Indigenous cohort is when you have enough staff that continue to come to you and go, we are literally watching our American Indian students not graduate before our eyes. This goes back all the way to 9th grade. Like when you see students who have absentee issues or they're in the hallways, we finally reached a critical point last year where some of our staff came together and said, we're not gonna watch this happen anymore, so let's come up with an idea to do something different. So that was part of our bar data working there as well. We did Summer Transition Academy last year for 3 weeks. We had 12 students earn a full credit before high school even started last year. And that was wonderful. We're gonna continue that this year as well. And then we created a functional academics program. There's supposed to be an asterisk by it, but I deleted it. We don't call it functional academics. The kids aren't told that they're in a functional academic program. But imagine being a student with an IQ that wouldn't qualify them for a DCD program. So they're in a regular special ed setting with really low skills, and they're drowning in academics. So that came out of our bar data as well. So now we have a program and a case manager dedicated to reach students that are falling between the cracks. Those are my words, no one else's, but there's no better way to describe it than kids that really need some extra support, even within special education, based on where their skill levels are. So those are programs that helped come to fruition last year based on our bar data and observations and unwillingness to sit still and not serve our kids better. This is our coaches report. This is our most recent report. Angie Johnson was here a couple weeks ago and shared this report back with us. So you can see the further to the right that you go, it says it's in place, and you can see what Denfeld scores on that. That is due to Jenny Wellnitz sitting next to me being one of the best coordinators in the country. That is not flowery. That is not because she's sitting here. We have one of the best bar coordinators in the country. That is true, and we also have one of the best coaches in the country in Angie Johnson. Part of the reason we pay for a contract every year with bar is we get coaching visits. And I've said this before in front of different groups, external coaching models when you're trying to implement something are critical. Even though we've been doing this a long time, we are better because we have an external coach that comes and does 2 on-site visits and gives us feedback. One of the questions she asked us when we met her during lunch when she stopped at Denfeld was, well, have you talked to the school board lately? And here we are. So that we are directly here because that was one of her expectations. She put it in our coaches report as something that we can improve, and that's why we're here sharing this with you. All right, so what does bar take to be successful? It takes district support. So over the years, I will tell you that it's been very comforting when I have had to get bar contracts and find the resources for that. I've contacted Simone and she says, this is important, this is good for kids, and we're gonna find a way. No questions, no debate, we're gonna figure out how to do it. And that has come from different funding sources over time. So thank you for the support over the years financially with that. It's a building commitment, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But we also have a 1.0 coordinator. At one point, Denfeld had a part-time coordinator, which was me, also being a classroom teacher, also being a bar teacher. Having a full-time coordinator is critical to the success of bar because it is a full-time job to run all those teams and support our kids that way. The last 2 points on this, the teachers and support staff that we have that persevere along with us, trust us and jump in the pool. Even when we don't tell them where the pool necessarily is, they jump anyway. And then we move the water around so they hit it, and our students and families. We are constantly doing stuff that's different and evolutionary, and our families and students are more than willing to go along with us on that journey, so I want to highlight that as well. So this is our contract. It's part of the Thrive program through BAR. It's a $35,000 yearly commitment. There's coaching calls available for Jenny to talk to our coach. There's 2 on-site coaching visits. We get recognition as a bar school of excellence, not because we pay the bill, but because we have a process in place for them to vet us as a national school of excellence. We get new team member training for 5 staff every year. We utilize that every year because we often have staff turnover or staff coming in and out of bar. We get the bar network membership for PLCs. I get to go to a PLC when I can find the time. There's a national bar PLC for principals, same thing for coordinators that we have access to. And then we get some reduced conference fees. We also get to send a couple staff, which is critical for us as well. And then we get access to our bar iTime curriculum online. So while that is a hefty price tag for a building like ours, we pay for it out of comp ed. It is well worth the investment of not only a 1.0 FTE for a coordinator, but a $35,000 contract, because when you look at the impact it's making on our kids, just the 45 credits our 9th graders recovered alone is substantial. Now, if you look at the ripple effect of that, recovering potentially 61 more for our upperclassmen, it makes the investment look small. All right, so next steps. So when the last contract changed and we added 2 PLCs for a total of 6 per month, it gave us some breathing room to continue to do the work of bar, which we consider and the district considers a PLC, because here's what it did. Not only does it allow for bar to function, but it also allows our bar teachers, which were typically cut off from a PLC because they were doing bar work all the time as a PLC, to connect with their content teachers, which is a huge step forward. So changing that contract and getting those 2 additional days that can be district or building led was critical for us to move bar forward, to get those bar teachers not only doing what they need to within bar, but then get them connected with their contents colleagues as well. And the 2 asks that we have, one, wouldn't it be great if we could move to total minutes instead of total meetings per month? So we have some additional flexibility on how we do PLCs in buildings like Denfeld, which are kind of a little bit more unique. Because even though we have 6 meetings, it still is a challenge trying to do all the work we need to in bar with small block meetings, which are teacher-led, and big block meetings, which are led by support staff like Jenny, to get all this done, because we are limited by the number of meetings. And if it was by minutes, we would have some flexibility to do some things differently, which we currently can't, because right now we're voluntarily relying on some of our teams to say, we will split a 40-minute meeting in 2 so we can do a small block meeting. But they're volunteering to do that because it's not part of their contract. So if we were to minutes, we would get in a better, more flexible spot. And the second thing that I'm going to ask, because I have to, since I have the audience, is we have to ensure we have intervention time built into the schedule next year in high schools so we can continue to do some of this work. Opportunity days are happening this year. We've used those to great effect. We need to make sure we have something, if not an opportunity day, something equivalent to continue this work. Because if we're running a straight 7, this becomes exponentially harder to pull off logistically. Is that fair to say that, Jenny?
Correct.
So those are our 2 asks, just so we can continue the good work at Denfeld High School of trying to support our kids. Questions?
Thank you. Superintendent Magus?
I just wanted to say thank you for this great work in being an exemplar, not just in our district, but across the country for this, to both of you. And having done a lot of intervention work like this, to see the structure and quality is really impressive, and I'm proud of that work that you're doing. It's a great reflection of the work that we can do here. I also think it's a good reflection of sometimes when we have different funding available for different parts of town or different populations, depending on need, that we want to make sure that we're using that money thoughtfully and using it towards research-based best practices. And I think this is demonstrating to the board and the district and the community that this is what we do. We don't just take the money and spend it willy-nilly. We put it towards things that matter and things that make a difference. And then we ask people, in addition to these resources, please roll up your sleeves and help us out and do even more than would be expected. And I really have always appreciated that spirit.
Member Sadowski?
Just a couple comments. First, thanks for being here tonight. Just really appreciated learning about how data-driven this program is, and then how we're using that data to really be focused on our students here at Denfeld, and just using that data to make creative and intentional interventions. So just really appreciated learning more about this today. I really hope I can come see some of those iTime lessons sometime soon. I also just, a couple comments, really appreciate the community partnerships and the impact of those. That's huge. Appreciate your feedback on the contract, and also just really appreciate your suggestions tonight.
Member Larfla Kemp and then Member Williams.
Yeah, thank you. Member Sadowski said a few things that I wanted to say, but I've just really appreciated from just being on the board over the years, and when you've done updates on this, just the growth of the program, the strength of the program, and I'm just smiling at you, Tom.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Pat you on the back there. And also just, I wanted to reiterate to the community partnerships. Wonderful, wonderful, keep it up. And then lastly, just that you have kind of concrete asks for us or concrete suggestions. So that's always helpful. So thank you, and thank you, Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. I'm not sure if I'm fully understanding. The iTime classes, that's for all students within the grades you've talked about, or is it for specifically identified students?
Nope, that's a great question. The iTime lessons are delivered once every 3 weeks to every ninth grader, and once every 4 weeks to every 10th grader. And the reason it's different between 9th and 10th grade is that civics is only a semester long in 9th grade, and when they're sophomores, they have 4-year-long classes in their core content areas. And then 11th and 12th grade is also on a 4-week rotation due to those content areas. But those are delivered to every class by the classroom teachers. That is like everything else our teachers do, it takes some trust, because what they are doing is they're saying, hey, we're going to do an iTime lesson on Friday. They are saying we're going to go faster because we're going to have better relationships with our kids and we're going to work on their soft skills. So we're more functional as a classroom and as a team and as a group, because that's once every 3 weeks or once every 4 weeks where you are going to pause your curriculum to work on a different curriculum, which is about how we show up as human beings together in society and community. So.
And I also want to say that with those iTimes, it's not just about delivering to the students and teaching them those soft skills or those social emotional skills, but it is also a point for the staff to learn about the student and to shift the viewpoint in which they may see that student, and then what they learn is brought back to our meetings and share. And sometimes that thing that a kid said or how they reacted or what they showed is the thing that will unlock that root cause or that thing that we didn't know. So there's many reasons and many value, the lessons that come from doing those iTimes.
Member Meixel?
I just appreciate learning about this, this program and the time that you're spending, making sure that we're aware of all of the backgrounds of it and how you're moving forward and looking at the data. I was really struck by like the interconnectedness of all of our different programs that we have supporting our students, how they complement each other. Many times we're here and we have like kind of silos of information from different programs, different funding streams, all those kind of things, but just kind of seeing all these different layers that support our students is just so great to hear. And I just wanted to ask you to please go back to your staff and just thank them for all the extra effort. Because obviously from the data you present, you know, it's making quite a difference. And we know that that's, they may not always hear thank you in all the ways they want to hear it all the time. So just please make sure that they know how much we appreciate the extra time and effort they put into this.
Thank you.
Member Lowfoot?
How many bar teachers do we have? Let's just take ninth grade. So we've got, we have how many teachers do we have within ninth grade that are the bar teachers and they have the cohort?
Yeah, I think there's 18 total. There's 5 teams.
There is,
2
okay.
full ninth grade, 2 full 10th grade, and then we have a hybrid team where they have both 9th and 10th grade
Okay,
classes.
sure, okay.
So that's a new thing that we're trying this year.
And the hybrid team comes because you don't have enough teachers to do it all.
Yeah,
So as you're trying to build these teams, you don't have teams that are too large or too small. So we end up having to hybridize one team where teachers teach some 9th and 10th grade classes.
and I think that many on the board have heard this comment from me before, but I was in the first cohort at Denfeld in 1998 with Tom as my partner, along with Christy Fisher, and so I can follow their growth, and that's wonderful. And even for what was done in 1998 till a break, and is that we would stay after school, and if Tom had tests to be made up or homework to be done, then we'd rotate as teachers after school to do virtually what you're doing now too in those recovery credits. But, it was just an opportunity to work more intentionally with students after school. If they stayed, then they were staying a little bit more. Now, there's other barriers that keep that from happening. But again, the growth, the consistency, the strength, the success, and then data. We didn't have as much data and when we first started either. So congratulations. And it's great to have you here to share this uplifting program and the ways what we're serving the kids. And I hope our community watches this either on our YouTube site or I'm glad we have some in the audience. Assistant Superintendent Bonds and I have always said that our Committee of the Whole meeting is a meeting that I hope our community doesn't miss very often. We have, from what we just heard prior to this presentation with our concurrence and non-concurrence, this presentation and yet the others we'll see tonight and every month are the ones that really keep us moving and uplifted as well, and also hardworking to dig in even more to provide for the kids. So thanks for being here.
Member Loeffler-Kemp.
Just thank you about, you mentioned 18 teachers, they're all trained with BAR. How many are you hoping to train this summer or however the training happens?
Usually we train 5 every year, and that's sometimes because you have teachers that are coming into BAR that have been at Denfeld, they just haven't trained, or they haven't taught in BAR. But we typically find spots for all 5 of those every year. Like we had a new guidance counselor this year that's for 9th grade, Dave Bergen. He got trained because he came to Denfeld. So that contract allows us that flexibility to get people that come, like Dave, coming over from East High School, comes to Denfeld, hey, you're gonna be the 9th grade counselor. Great, we got him BAR training because we had access to it. So that's often how it is. Even if they're not new to the district or new to Denfeld, they are people that just haven't taught in BAR before.
Okay, excellent. And then a follow-up, how are parents explained about this program or kind of brought in, educated,
Yeah,
engaged?
and it's always tricky.
Difficult.
Yeah, always difficult, but we touch base on it at like the 8th grade open house and any orientations in our newsletters, those kind of broad communications that we have.
Chair Derek Eater.
Hi, welcome. It's great to see you both here today. So my question is, when I'm looking at the data on the data analysis leads to interventions this year, 75% of identified students participated. I guess what I'm trying to get to is when you look at this BAR data, can you see students that are identified, students that participated versus students who are identified who did not participate? Can you see differences in graduation rates? Have you looked at that, or is that just? Because what I'm trying to get to is how this supports raising getting our kids graduated and walking across the stage.
With the intervention that we just did, because
Yeah.
it's the first time we did it, I wouldn't be able to answer
No, I'm
that
just
quite yet.
wondering if you've-
But no, but that is always something that we are constantly looking at. And because we're always looking at data, we're always finding those through lines, we're always
Yeah.
finding those layers. And so we will have a million different interventions going on, because for every layer, it's
Yeah,
meant to
that's-
hit a specific target. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and we've really learned that through the years. I will say that we have, through the years, learned a lot that we can have another conversation about at another time through our transition meetings that we have with our 8th grade partners with Lincoln Park. So one of the things that we do through BAR is every year, Lincoln is gracious and gives us a whole day where our support staff go over there, meet with their support staff, and we talk about every single 8th grader at Lincoln. And we take notes on them and think what strengths are, ways to help boost themselves when they're here in high school. And there are some things through the years that we have learned through that collection that I think lead to some root causes. And I think that that could be a different conversation. But yes, there's things that we are always we don't just look at, oh, like this works. We always are looking at who didn't it work for and why, and how are we going to adjust to that? Now, what do those students need, and where do we need to get them?
And there's two things that I want to compliment that I really appreciate about this. The first thing is going back in the 8th grade and working with those, because we know high school graduation, that working towards that goal starts young, right? And I love how they're layering 8th. And then also just appreciating when you're looking at the grades for students between 50 to 59%, that's a realistic goal to get them past. Sometimes I worry if they're lower, then you're just trying to pass them through, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're gaining those competencies to be able to be successful later on. So there's just so much I appreciate about this program. So thank you both so much. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would be remiss to say, or not say, thank you as well. Make sure, Tom, you go back and tell the team I say thank you. And I want to make sure the board, you've already hit on it. This is just one of the many programs and opportunities we are providing our students to ensure that they are being connected to school, that they're being successful in school, and this is just one of the many programs Denfeld has. So I'm emphasizing that because I know there's always a lot of questions and concerns on how we're meeting the needs of our kids, but there are a lot of programs offered, whether it's Denfeld, Easton, and all of our schools, where we are really trying to meet the needs that exist out there. And we're going to keep striving to do better. But there are people who are really working hard. I know Denfeld and Tom and his staff are working really hard. So thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Sherry Williams, who is our Director of Head Start. She will be presenting the Duluth Head Start annual approvals.
Hi there. All righty. Ready, Shannon? Okay. Every year I come here in April with a variety of things that need approval from the school board, and here I am again. But look at me, I'm not last, I'm third. I just want to point that out. Thanks, Anthony. So I'd like to start with our self-assessment. So Head Start requires an annual self-assessment that analyzes progress made towards our established goals in the full year prior. So you'll notice our self-assessment document is self-assessment 23-24 because I need to have the entire year's worth of data, and I come at an awkward time. We almost have another full set, but that's just the way the system is set up. We bring it to you and we share it with our staff and our parents, the governing body and our policy council, just to let you know what we have been working on and analyzing in Head Start. It is a 14-page report. In the past, I brought that full 14-page report and gone over it with you, but I want you to know that this year I brought just highlights from the slides. If you want to see more, feel free to enter the document and read in detail what we were talking about. So when we actually do the self-assessment, we invite parents and staff and community members to join us to look at our grant goals and look at, just join the discussion and what we feel was successful and what are some things we might want to work on. That can include altering our goals if necessary. So you can go ahead and advance, and I'll just go through the goals. So high-quality inclusive classrooms, navigating trauma was a goal that we've had established for the last 5 years. We do see many incidents of physical aggression. That's something that we monitor with behavior incident reports. And in response, we've created some really excellent professional development around this topic, as well as a program-wide approach to support teaching teams called the Preschool Support Team. In this slide, you'll notice our anxiety curve professional development that we've got a staff person who is working on her master's degree right now and a mental health coordinator who together came up with how do we respond to children when they're at varying points on the anxiety curve. It was very well received by our staff, and we plan to answer the call for presenters to the National Head Start Association, which will be held in Minneapolis next year, to train nationally on this PD. really powerful PD. Responding to the unique needs of our community at one point was called Walking the Talk of Equity. This is a federally funded program, so I've had to change some of my language within the grant. So responding to the unique needs of our community had us create Oshkin Waywin, which is a preschool class that incorporates Ojibwe language and culture into programming, and that program continues to grow. More than twice as many families have been accepted into the program this year than last year at this time. So Oshkin Waywin is getting a lot of support in the community, so we're very pleased to see that happen. Fostering resilience with a focus on health and wellness. One of our big parts of that is our partnership with the YMCA, where we have 4 full-day classes attend Safety Around Water, which is a 6-week class focusing on skills to prevent drowning. Every Head Start family receives a day pass, and tonight, right now, at the YMCA, is our very first ever swim class for parents. This came up at our self-assessment last year. Parents involved with safety around water, and they're saying, you know, I don't feel comfortable getting in the water. I wonder if there could be swim lessons for us. And so the YMCA is graciously hosting tonight. I'm going there right after the meeting. 7 parents signed up for our program. Free childcare is there. So they're swimming, having dinner, chatting with each other while their children are in childcare. So we're excited to have that happen. I'll share pictures later. And we've also had some citywide father and father figure events at the YMCA where 19 Head Start families attended. So we're really pleased to see dads getting out there, and the YMCA has been a fabulous community partner for us, so we're really happy about that. School readiness is always a Head Start goal, so included in every Head Start grant are some school readiness goals. We tend to make our goals be for those children that year. So we want to see some growth happen from the fall to the spring in each of the 5 core areas that Head Start requires. And you can see that we far surpass those goals. In fact, it probably makes sense for us to increase them. So again, what you're seeing is the percentage of growth from fall to spring in our half days and our full days. So we do monitor our half days versus our full days so that we can make sure that we're still seeing adequate progress, even though the dosage is a little bit lower. So sharing that with you. Then you can see in the small bar graph on the side just what our scores actually are comparing our 3 funding streams. So we not only have Head Start in Duluth Public Schools, we have voluntary pre-K and school readiness. So looking at those, when this data was taken, voluntary pre-K met only 3 days a week. And so we can see the dosage does matter. At the end of the self-assessment, recommendations get made, and so the recommendations are plan for a smooth transition to a new Head Start director. I think you might have approved my 1-year leave that will be followed by my retirement. This was always a part of the plan, so I'm not running out when things are getting hard. I was planning on leaving at this point. I've been working for the Duluth Public Schools since fall of 1989. So this is the natural closing of my career. We also, at this time, need to visualize an ideal Head Start program because we did get notice that we'll be competing for our next grant. And so you should know that that's the way Head Start funding works. So we've had 2 deficiencies in the last 5-year period. And so we will have a continuation grant for this upcoming year. So we'll continue with our same grant goals moving into school year 25-26. But in the second half, sometime after July, our grant will be up for competition, which can sound scary. Other entities can apply for the grant at the same time. So what you are essentially doing is stating a case for, this is what we can do. This is what we can do with this amount of money. I don't know if you remember, but when I first came into my position, the very first thing I did as a director was write a competitive grant. So I'm not, at that time, it was really scary to think of, but I feel much more confident that we've held this grant for 60 years. We are a high-quality program embedded in our elementary schools, so I'm very confident that we will maintain the grant. But that notice did come, and that is a result of the deficiencies that we've experienced in the last 5 years. We do some internal monitoring, and we realized we need to add an interview to our internal monitoring, and I really wanted to make sure that we get that done, so I've included that. And working hard to encourage and capture family engagement at the site level. So while we're seeing some family engagement happening out in the community when we have our large events out in the community, we really want to make that connection be between the families and the school. And so really turning our lens on how can we get people more actively involved in the school, because that's sometimes a place where people are uncomfortable, and that's where we want to make the connections. So we're really going to change our focus to making those connections happen at school. There's a link here to the full self-assessment report. And all of the things that I'm bringing to you tonight are on the consent agenda because they all need to be approved. Okay? The Head Start transportation waiver is the next thing. So the funding stream voluntary pre-K from MDE requires that transportation be provided to 4-year-olds. And in Duluth, we extend that to include our 4-year-old Head Start students. Head Start has 2 requirements that we ask to waive so that our kids can ride the bus, and that is the use of a child restraint system and having bus monitors on board. So if we had Head Start busing, those would be required. But we're asking to ride the Gen Ed buses, and we're asking to waive those requirements. Our Policy Council supports this. Many of our families do need transportation. 114 4-year-old children take the bus to school on Gen Ed buses on any given day, so quite a few families do take advantage of that. Safe delivery of preschool students was implemented following a deficiency in this area, and I want you to know that safe delivery of preschool students works. So we have not had any release of children without the appropriate adult present. We really feel that that we've got a really safe way to transport preschool children on the bus. So the system works. And then to look closely at our federal grant for fiscal year '26. And this explains how we'll continue our current grant goals. We were working towards, it would have been a base grant year for us, so we had started like moving towards a base grant, but once you get the competitive grant notice, you know that you will continue with your grant goals so that you're not writing 2 huge grant things so close together. So the federal Head Start grant for next year is $2,800,000. There's a portion of it set aside for training and technical assistance, around $30,000, and our federal funded enrollment for Head Start is 190 children. So that is the grant that we will be writing with the similar grant goals that we have in place.
Member Williams?
Calling me way faster than I anticipated. Okay. I probably asked this last year. Help me, Oshki and.
Oshki and Waywin.
Say it one more time.
Oshki in Waywin.
In Waywin. I need to practice saying that. Oshki in Waywin. That is completely independent of Missabican.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I will probably just keep asking that every year for clarification for everybody. And then I really want to praise the swim program for parents. That's incredible. I'm going to give a little anecdote that's unnecessary, but that's what I do. So when my family moved here, I'm the youngest of four. None of my older siblings were required to take swimming as part of Phi-Ed because of access to public pools and swimming and all of that. So I was the first one to have to take it. And it was so intimidating to me because I didn't see any adults swim. Like, I don't think my mom ever learned how to swim. And so this is incredible, and it really focuses on equity. So I love that, whether that's on purpose or not. Yeah, just access, that's awesome. So I
love
just
that.
wanted to praise that, thank you. And then I appreciate hearing about the safe delivery of preschoolers protocol, because the waivers kind of made me go, "Huh." So yes, so thank you for explaining that a little bit.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, our families are so excited to swim. I'm so excited to go there, actually, and have a little dinner with them after the meeting, so.
And also, I want to make sure the board is aware that Oshkin Waywin is something that we started relatively new as of 2 years ago. I think we started Oshkin Waywin.
No, it's already been 4 years.
It's already been 4 years?
It's been 4
So again, it
years.
was one of those programming that we want to make sure that we provided for our students who are Indigenous. And it ends up being more than just originally Indigenous students, but to provide that culture. So I'm connecting this back to the concurrence, non-concurrence. This was one of those things that we put in place years ago in order to continue to meet the needs, starting early, right? And so I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out. I'm going to go in order because I have no idea who's next. So I'm going to go with Member Sadowski.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of your work, just working with the Head Start Policy Council, educating, just facilitating, I think is probably the word I'm looking for, just really meaningful conversations, and I've just really enjoyed sitting there and listening in those meetings and just hearing what their feedback is, and then knowing just over the last couple of years how we have implemented their feedback. From the little vests that the kids wear. And I'm really, really proud of our school district that we are busing our Head Start kids. That would seem really awful not to do that when other 4-year-olds might be getting that ride. But also just when I'm looking at the self-assessment recommendations, I was really tired at our last Head Start Policy Council meeting, but I remember parents starting to talk about number 4 and like how important that is to. So it's that encourage and capture family engagement at the site level, and it was really cool kind of hearing parents reflect about, what does family engagement look like at their site, and what can we do for that, and just wanted to say thank you for your work on all of this, and I know other people have comments, so I will stop talking so you can get down to the pool.
Down to the Y.
Peter?
Thank you. Your years of service to the kids of this community it's special. I hope you know that. And the mark that you've left on this community is very important. So thank you for that work. Okay, so in your self-assessment, I can't tell you how much I love the idea of encouraging and capturing family at the site level. I think especially for our schools on the west side, when you think about even things like PTAs and just those sorts of places for that family engagement, how do we integrate and how do we show our Head Start families that they're welcomed in the schools, especially we know that some of these families did not have welcoming schools, did not have great experiences. School was a place of trauma for them to go and for them to sort of unlearn or update some of those notions about schools and understanding that these are safe places for their kids to go. The PTA is a place for them. It's a place of community. I think that is a wonderful addition, and I think that will really strengthen and lift those communities, especially the elementary schools. I can't tell you how much I just love that idea. And again, one of my favorite things at Piedmont in the morning is seeing the littles with their bright vests on that almost go down to the pavement because they're so big on them. It makes my morning. So thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Member Lofa?
So can we go back the slide with the federal grant on it? I just have a question about, so is there other funding that we get? It says program operations, $2,800,000, and then it says federal funded enrollment, $190,000. Does that mean that are there other funds that we're using, or is this what we exist on for our Head Start in Duluth?
Yeah, this is Head Start. We do have VPK and school readiness, but that is not included in this slide, yeah.
And so, and then the 190 is our number for our Head Start students that are funded by the money that we see. Okay,
Yes.
just a clarification, thank you. So that would be also money that, right now, with just some conversations coming out of our government, is potentially something looking to be reallocated to another department, or just some other questions about that? Okay.
We're hoping not.
Yeah, I'm confident, I'm confident.
Yeah,
We're going forward.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna have that enrollment, we're gonna have that money.
I just wanted to add to the thank you, Sherry, for your years of work with our district and the work with Head Start in the last few years and taking that on. I remember meeting you when you were in your first week under Head Start, and just what you've done. And I really want to celebrate the work that you have done with families. And I remember the conversations parents had about their swim lessons and the reality now you've brought forward, parent engagement. Again, we have a couple Stowe PTA leaders that came from your leadership team. And so, and that's been duplicated in other ways across the district. So just thank you for the work that you've done. And we will keep celebrating you until your last day.
Rosie?
Member Banks?
Thank you. So can we go back to the fostering resilience with the focus on health and wellness slide? That bullet number 4
Yes.
is very exciting, and I'm very happy about that. Is that brand new, or is that been around for a little while?
Head Start encourages every program to really work on father engagement. And so we definitely try to have 3 or 4 events during the course of the year that focuses on father and father figure engagement. So
That's awesome. Thank you.
Super.
I would just add to Henry, when I served as a school board rep on it, there were often parents
Yes.
or fathers on the advisory board as well as leading the advisory board. Yeah.
we continue to have at least one, there's always at least one dad who's on policy council, so it's great.
Superintendent Magus?
Well, I know there's a lot that's been said about your leadership, and thinking about the time that I've worked with you two over the past 5 years, and thinking about my 30 plus years in education, and I would be very, very hard pressed to think of anybody who's led with more heart than you. You put your heart out there for the kids, you care about them, you love them, you support your program in thoughtful ways, and just to reiterate what everybody else has said, I honor the work that you've done here for us, and I've been proud to work with you, and I will be proud to continue working with you as we work on finding a suitable successor.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty.
She already knows I'm proud of her and the work she does. Up next, we have a presentation that will be provided by our very own Superintendent, John Magus, related to the Duluth Promise.
And I'll keep it relatively brief too, but you want to pull up, thanks, good. I was just not sure if you wanted me to pull it up or not. Great. So what Duluth Promise, we've been hearing a lot about it. You saw some updates that I shared in my superintendent's report last month. But really, we continue our work on our Duluth Promise. And really, what is it? It's a coalition of educational institutions and workforce partners committed to building a strong workforce. And we're focused on making sure that we have strong career pathways to employment in high demand fields. And we're starting with 3 different career areas right now. We would love to focus on every career area, but it's important to pick a few and go more deeply. And Danette Sebo has also been very involved, as has Jen Larva and Anthony Bonds in this work as well. But really, we're focusing on healthcare, manufacturing, and business services. So within manufacturing, we talk about the trades and industry, and within business services, we're also more deeply focused on some of the IT work and accounting. So those are some things that we're focused on. So why are we doing this? Why has this become such a hot topic? Really, there are three areas that the city and different employers, as well as our work group, have identified. Really thinking about, we have a shrinking workforce. Our labor force is decreasing, and there are a lot of different companies that are looking for employees when they're thinking about settling here or starting a company here. They want to make sure that they have the workforce needed. And then also, we're seeing sometimes that there's a disconnect between the skills taught in the educational institutions and those that are required by employers. So thinking about more hands-on opportunity, more opportunity for work in the field is really important to us. And then we're also seeing, and I think we all know people who have either graduated from high school or graduated from college, and they talk about how much they enjoyed Duluth, but they move elsewhere. And so how are we thinking about keeping the best and the brightest and making sure that there are lots of possibilities for everyone here? That is really important to us as well. So how are we going to address this? Well, really, we're trying to look at this in a different way and in a collective way by making sure that we're all aligned in this work. I think that it's not that there's anything incredibly new about this. It's that we're having everybody work on the problem in a cohesive way, and everybody seek solutions in cohesive ways. So really thinking about what are we doing to have the strategic partnerships between the higher ed institutions. We think about who's involved. We think about the University of Minnesota Duluth. We think about College of St. Scholastica. We think about Lake Superior College, all being very much involved. And then in addition to those higher ed institutions, we have the Chamber of Commerce very involved, and Apex, which is our local area economic development group. So we have them involved, as well as the city with their workforce development. So everybody is trying to address the problem individually, but to put us all together working on the same cause is really what's intended by this. And again, every time that we talk about this, the people are energized. When we get in the room, everybody is saying, let's do this, let's do more of this. And even today, we were at the, Member Loeffler Kemp was there as well at the Let's Do Lunch event put on by the Chamber. And Chamber President Matt Baumgardner talked about the Duluth Promise and how in a room of 200 leaders, talked about how this is important and recognized our school district for the work we're doing, as well as the work of the group. And then Chancellor Charles Nyes also had a full slide on it and talked in great detail about the partnership of the Duluth Promise and why this is important. And really, how do those higher ed institutions plan? We want to make sure that we have stackable credentials. And what I mean by that is ability for people to take classes from different institutions and have them count. So if you take a couple classes from LSC, you can use those credits towards what you're doing at College of St. Scholastica or UMD, so that there's reciprocity and acceptance of each other's credits, so that we can better support lifelong learning and accessibility to those courses. We also recognize that people have different on-ramps and off-ramps in life. You know, I didn't know I was going to become a teacher, let alone an educational administrator. And different times in our lives, we want to access different training and different opportunities and get on and off different career ladders. And we want to make sure that this programming is the same. So we might have somebody graduating from high school, for instance, with a certified nursing assistant license, but they might decide that they later want to become an RN, or they might want to go through medical school. So we want to make sure that people have different opportunities for on and off ramp. And then making sure that the community is engaged as well. So making sure that this is not just seen as a school or educational effort, but it's something supported by the full community. So before I go on to the next steps, but because I should have had this too, My fault. So you've probably heard about career pathway programs many times before, and you might be thinking, okay, this is just another career pathway program, but how is this different? And really, I can think of 3 different ways. First of all, it's that high-level collaboration that we had. When we think about the partnership of higher ed, we think about the city, the chamber, and Apex, everybody's stepping up and working on this together. And every time we've talked to different entities like Essentia, St. Luke's, Cirrus, all the big names, and a lot of other names. We think about just the various employers that we have in the area. When they're hearing about this, they want to get behind it. They want to be involved. I would also say our trade groups are desperately seeking additional people that want to get involved in the trades, that they want to have apprenticeships. We want to make sure that we're training our future welders, our engineers, our electricians, and we want to make sure we have that partnership too. So that high-level collaboration is the first piece. Second is to really make sure that we have, the second was the weaving of the industry and trades is what I meant to say. But the third is really think about the diversity of our workforce. We want to make sure that we're thinking about diversity and we're thinking about how we're making this inclusive from the get-go. Because I've been part of programs where we might have, and I think I've mentioned this before, we might have a home building program, but you can't even get into the home building program until you've passed geometry with a B. And so that automatically makes it so it's a gatekeeping piece that doesn't allow people access. And I've seen this done in other areas where we can create different opportunities where we're getting people to the table and thinking about that from the get-go. So really, it's about baking all this in from the beginning as a project rather than thinking about it afterwards. Thinking about how is equity, how is inclusion part of what we do from the beginning, rather than in the end realize that we're missing the boat with certain people and trying to include them. I would also say with various career pathway programs, a lot of times schools and districts, we come with our hands out. We're looking for apprenticeships, or sometimes we're just looking for money or donations so that we can do what we want to do. And we want to make sure that we're really truly partnering in taking the advice and guidance from the various employers in the area, so that we can also make sure that we are preparing kids for what our employers are actually needing. And so that's an important piece. So in addition to the event we had today, where we heard about it, there was the opening of the T building at Lake Superior College. It was the last Thursday or Friday, I'm sorry, it was last week. But at the opening event, it was a big grand opening, and there were hundreds of people there. And again, the chamber, the president of Lake Superior College, Patricia Rogers, and the mayor all talked about the Duluth Promise and how important this is. So I'm proud of the work we're doing, and just want to say that this is important. And then if you go to the next step slide, really when we think about our next steps, right now we have 2 bills moving forward, one with the House and one with the Senate. Sadly, I am a little concerned with the budget landscape that we're seeing right now. And actually, I just was on the phone with our lobbyist, Jeff Anderson, that the funding, there isn't a whole lot of funding there for schools. And so I'm hopeful that we can get funding for this, because it's a smaller amount and it really serves as a great catalyst for what we can do. But I'm also very confident that with the energy behind this and with the dedication that the different entities are putting towards this and the in-kind contributions, this is going to happen no matter what. And so I think that those are the pieces that we're focused on, are trying to get those bills across the line. But if we can't, then finding other ways of making this happen. And as a school district, we've continued to invest in, despite our budget reductions and reallocations, we've made sure that we maintained the principal and special assignment position so that we can continue to support this work as we have ongoing. And we're also finishing an op-ed that we'd like to share with the Duluth News Tribune that would be signed by the entire team, focused on the Duluth Promise, and that should be coming out probably sometime in the next week or 2. So those are some of the things with the Duluth Promise. But we continue that work, and we'll be sharing more as time goes on.
Member Laughlin Kemp?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was really proud to be at that luncheon today and hear how it was so weaved into the presentation by Chancellor Nyes and also by Matt. And they gave great applause to the work of Superintendent Magus for his leadership in not just bringing people together, but bringing the idea of this together. And so thank you so much. Really am proud of the work that we all are doing, but that your leadership has done to make this happen. And it was so obvious today. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no additional questions, we're going to go to our next presenter. Our Executive Director for Business Services, Simone Zunich, is coming up to share some information related to our FY26 budget timeline and impact overview.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's that time of the year again. I'll start talking about next year's budget. We have a lot going on, as the superintendent has talked about too. So this is a timeline and impact overview. In May, I will bring the first reading to you, and I will have everything broken down by fund, and I'll have numbers for you. I hope in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we get some more clarification from the state and MDE, and then we'll work with what we know. So if you'd go to, yes, thank you. The purpose and objectives. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide a high-level overview of the budgeting process and the multiple opportunities for board input and discussion prior to the final adoption of the FY26 budget in June. Our objectives are to examine the current context of our budget decision-making, share timeline analysis and impact of the proposed 26 budget, provide a high-level overview of the key factors that impact our budget, and review the timeline of future board actions. So how we got here, we have significant recent state education funding that has helped to the point of we did get an increase to our basic formula in the last 4 weeks to 2.74%. I had initially budgeted 2%, and that's what we received last year. It's not enough to make up for decades of underfunding and to cover increased Duluth Public Schools operating costs. The district also faces several unfunded mandates. These include the unemployment costs as of June, July, and August of 2026, paid Minnesota FMLA, effective January of 26. We are potentially looking at, that could cost the same as unemployment does. So we will have to pay half of it, and it can be negotiated, but there's a lot of money that could be tied up there. So that's effective January of 26, and potentially compensatory hold harmless. We were given our compensatory numbers for next year, and now I'm reading, from the governor that he may bring that back to help balance the budget. So we may get held harmless, which means we'll get the amount we're going to this year. I have seen a document out there that we may get an additional $21,000 or something. So basically, it's the same amount. Other areas to be factored in are the READ Act and other federal mandates that are unknown at this time. And by that, I mean, I hope in the next 4 weeks we'll find out about some federal programming, if everything is stays the same, which I hope it does. I would think we would know by now, but we still have not received any information. So the cost of nearly all expenses have increased. So wages, benefits, utilities, transportation, food, and contracted services. The overview of the budgeting process, our timeline. So to understand the situation, we've had a budget imbalance, and the core issue of the deficit budget needs to be addressed, which is what we're doing. The 26 focus, the primary objective is to achieve a balanced budget for the 26 fiscal year. It is the superintendent's job to bring to the school board a balanced budget every year. We have been doing administrative analysis. Senior leaders are actively reviewing budget reductions and reallocations and how this will impact the 26 budget. We are also having small group school board meetings in April to help understand the 5-year impact of our budget. Under analysis, we're doing strategic analysis of expenditures, which include labor, benefits, programming, and contracted services. And our revenue considerations are state and federal funding. The district is aware of budget recommendations that will be brought forth by the governor at the end of March of '25. That was the initial paperwork I got, but I still haven't received anything yet. And we have received, as I told you, an increase in our basic formula. And our impact, we are working to minimize the budget impact is a key goal for our budget team. We strive to minimize the impact on schools and students for FY26. And we will present a budget that is not only balanced for FY26, but will also be sustainable in the long term. We will consider the potential impact of future economic conditions and enrollment. So our initial forecasting, which is a very high-level overview, there's a lot of other information that will go into our strategic plan as far as being strategic for the next 5 years. We do a lot of analysis. We use a 5-year, a what-if revenue calculator through MDE. That was just released 4 weeks ago. They have the new compensatory amount on that document still. They have not adjusted it yet. So we will review our enrollment in our upper left-hand corner. For FY26, an increase of enrollment from 8,068, which is our budget this year, to 8,099 for FY26. They just opened it's called the ADM WE portal, and I worked with our Mars coordinator, Phil, and we did estimates now for the next 3 years. So we're using 8,100 for FY26. We've only added 25 additional for the next 3 years to be conservative. To the right, our basic formula increased to 2.74. That gave us roughly $448,000 more. And our compensatory aid remains consistent with 25. We will know more in April. Special education cross-subsidy and aid combined will increase by 6.73. And the reason for that is because they use last year's expenditures and then calculate our new dollars from that. So it changes from year to year. And it's also almost 2 years behind because of the enrollment and before we get our final numbers. So title aid, I have not heard anything yet. Title aid remains under review. And child nutrition in FY26, it continues to serve free breakfast and lunch to all students. I hope that can go through another year or two. And our future board discussions and actions, we look forward to continuing to discuss the proposed budget with the Finance Committee and School Board tonight on April 8th. And then in April, we will, finalize any additional small group meetings that we need to have. May 6th, a committee of the whole, I'll be bringing the first reading of the 26 budget. And in May, any updates will be brought to HR Business Services. And then on June 17th, we will adopt I will bring it to you for adoption and vote on the FY26 budget. So that's what's going to be happening in the next 8 weeks regarding our budget.
Member Lowfoot?
Do you see a potential on our future board budget discussions, the last slide, that between May 6th and then bringing it to HR Business Services in their business meeting, which would probably be around the 15th of May, that we would want or need a meeting again before June 17th?
I think so.
I think we've done
I
that in
would
the
like to,
past.
because I think we should have some more updated information. I would like to update my 5-year analysis, and I'd like to show it to you. So, yes.
So is the suggestion a special board meeting around then will be considered? Is that what's being asked?
We've done it in the past too, and I just thought, I'm looking at this timeline and, you know, you've done a great job of bringing information to us and in other ways besides this, but I just think that with the changing dynamics of what's going on in our state and our country, that there could be changes between May and then we get it in June and we have to confidently vote on it. And I just want to give board members the chance to say, look at what our schedules look like between May and June and see if there's not a time we could again meet.
I think it's a very good idea. So when I bring the first reading to you, essentially could have a second reading and then our final adoption in June. So we can definitely do that. I can work with superintendent and you, Anthony, and we could talk about a date.
It could be the cow meeting. I get, we do have other meetings, but,
We do, I just,
You mean the June cow?
yeah.
Oh,
It
we could do it then
But
too.
that's graduation weeks and all kinds of stuff, so, yeah.
I'm open to that.
we will obviously work with the superintendent to figure it out in terms of some suggested dates and so forth, because there's a lot of, as you already know, going into the end of the year, we have graduation data. These remaining COW meetings will be just as packed, if not even more packed. And so we probably will need another separate meeting to do things. Member Loeffler-Kemp.
I was actually going to suggest something similar. We've always put one on the calendar. Sometimes we've decided not to use it, but getting it on the calendar this far out is really helpful. And then just lastly, again, just really appreciate you and the leadership team providing many opportunities for us to hear and give input throughout this process. So really appreciate that.
Thank you. Superintendent Maggis.
Sure, and I just want to say thanks to Simone and the team. And Sheila Stevens has also achieved a milestone. Do you want to share about that as well? And then I have one more thing to say.
Sure. Sheila Stevens, our finance manager, has been in the MASBO Certified Business Official Program for 3 years and has finished her last class. It was on food and nutrition. So it's a big deal, and she'll get a certificate, and it's very exciting, and she's thrilled and very happy. So if you ever see her, I'll bring her to the next HR Business Services. So we're very proud of her.
And I just wanted to say thanks to you for all the work that you've done related to finance and running your team, and also that when I know information for board decision-making is one of my superintendent goals, and I think that making sure that you, particularly around budget, because that's one of the biggest things that you do as a school board is approve the budget. We want to make sure that we are providing whatever information you need for that decision-making. And I know there was some feedback last year just as far as making sure that we were advancing things and having information ahead of time, and some of the timeline that we've adjusted for this year is reflective of that desire by the board to focus on that. But thank you.
Thank you. And so, Chair Derek Eater, we are going to return back to the concurrence and non-concurrence discussion. We left off, thank you, Executive Director Zonich. We left off on number 8. I'll have Mrs. White will come back up with us. And I really appreciate the suggestion to spend more time on this. And so, again, we really want to make sure, and as reflected in the response, we really want to make sure we were really thoughtful as we responded to our parent advisory group who made these recommendations. One of the things that I appreciated this year from our APAC is that to come up with the vote, they actually looked at every recommendation to see if we actually accomplished what was recommended. That was part of their decision on whether we were going to be in concurrence or not in concurrence. And so I want to make sure that that we my goal is to work with our APAC to achieve concurrence next year. And I'm hopeful that if we are really, which we are trying to do now, thoughtful in our response and make sure that we are putting in our recommendations or responses, things that we can actually execute, that hopefully we will achieve concurrence next year, if this is going to be their primary way of determining if we make concurrence or not concurrence. So thank you for spending more time on this, because I want us to be in concurrence and work with our parents to achieve that. So number 8 is regarding, there's a lot of resources available that are in different spaces and places. We've moved as a district several different locations. Sorry about that. Several different locations, and we have a lot of resources that are indigenous in nature that are available. They've been kept in storage in a variety of ways. There's a lot of concerns from our parents that they don't want these materials to receive the respect that they are should be given and stored properly to honor them and the materials and the culture and the heritage. And so their recommendation is that we find a way to really store these things more adequately and properly, and to make sure that they are really sorted out. So that's what's being asked in number 8, and we have a response. Sheila has already started working on it. There's a storage unit has been purchased to make sure that we move the resources that are in the D&T building, or our First Street building, because it's under construction. So we have to move those resources again to another separate location. So we have some temporary storage that has been provided. We are working with our facilities department to identify another space that is district office space to store the materials that then can be sorted and so forth more properly. So that is the recommendation, is proper storage of those resources. Questions? Member Mikesell?
So were these materials stored in the DNT building, the First Street building, like always, or just in the last year?
Over the different places that we moved, they kept moving with
I
us.
see. And so is our staff and students able to access them when they're in the different various spots? Or have
No,
they not
not
been able to?
adequately. Yeah, there's a lot of resources that have been stored and kept in storage for a variety of reasons. And so we want to make sure that they are more accessible and available.
And so in the current new storage area, will they be accessible to staff and students?
In the
Or was it for
temporary,
future?
for right now, we just have temporary storage that's being rented right now. But then we're working with our facilities to identify another place that's district owned, that we can have these materials stored and then have easy access for checking in and checking out of those resources. So it's a work in progress.
Okay.
But at the First Street building, there will be adequate storage
Okay.
once all developed.
You mentioned in our response that facilities has already moved 2 truckloads of pallets. I was curious, how many truckloads of pallets are there in total?
We're still going through the pallets, the boxes, putting them in one area so that they can, facilities can take it to our storage unit. And once it's at the storage unit, that's when we will sort through it, categorize it. We want everything barcoded so that it's easily accessible to students, APAC, and teachers.
You really are having to do it all.
Well, it's not just myself. It's a member of the APAC committee and our staff here.
Okay, well, that was my last question on this recommendation. I see that our APAC committee requested that there would be school district assistance with the accurate inventory. And so I just wanted to verify, right now I hear that Ms. White is involved and our committee members are volunteering their time, but is there any other district resources being put into the inventory of what sounds like quite a bit of material?
Yeah, there's a clerical that we have who knows how to do the barcoding. So she's going to come and help us do that.
Great. Is that, it sounds like you have enough resources then for
Yes.
this process? Great.
And the APAC are willing to come and help sort as well.
Fabulous, thank you.
And we've had this discussion before. Coordinator White knows that if there's a recommendation for some additional support, whether it's working with some of our staff, if they want to not only volunteer, but if they want to receive compensation for things after hours and so forth, that those are the things that we could be working on to make sure happens, so there's adequate support. I'm not sure who's first. I'm still going to just go in order. Member Banks, and then I'll come back. That's the way.
So quick question with regard to the materials and storage. Do these items require climate-controlled storage?
We're not sure. We're still going through all of the materials, but I'm certain that a lot of the replica artifacts are put away in a classroom or another teacher liaison's home.
So just picture when we were at the UHG building, we were, those materials are there. At one point, we need to get ready to move. There were a lot of, what do you call it, wrapping? I'm going to say sheer wrapping, but saran wrapping of all of these artifacts.
Shrink wrapping.
Right, and then, they were sent over to the D&T building for storage. And so there's a number of pallets of resources that have been collected over the years. So that's why we want to make sure that we go through them, do their proper inventory of them, storage of them, and making sure, more importantly, that staff have access to those materials.
Thank you.
Superintendent Magus?
Since it's linked, and actually you were just explaining what I was explaining, and I think you meant to say the historic Old Central. They weren't at UHG, but they were at historic Old Central, and then we moved from there to the Garfield building. But that was part of the change. The historic Old Central, we had far more space than we needed for many things, and I think human resources and our records there, we had just vast areas of storage, and we didn't really have to think about how do we keep things together in a thoughtful way. And so when we moved to Garfield, that was meant as a temporary piece, but it's important for us to hold these artifacts and these cultural pieces in the respect that they deserve, and that's why we want to put the resources towards it.
Member Lofold?
So this is quite an undertaking. For my years at Denfeld, I mean, when you think about all of the different buildings that our programming for our American Indian students have had over these 50-some years, I know that there's artifacts at Denfeld that are in certain trophy cases and have been brought into us from the community. I just think of, it's a huge undertaking I think the access to curriculum, if you've toured the First Street building, so far you were brought down, or maybe you were brought down to the sub-basement where lots of curriculum, not just for our Indigenous curriculum, but for every curriculum we've had. You're right, when we were in the old Central complex, we had oodles of file cabinets and storage, and so I can remember that purging that went on too. Just, we've had things since the 20s that have gathered things here. So I appreciate that, and then I'm wondering if there isn't some kind of funding, like grants that you'd get from historical places or other other ways of getting some help financially, because this, and this isn't going to be done. And I don't know what the timeline is for a little bit, like there should be a graduated accomplishment on many of these things that we've put out, where, what's the expectation for this year? What's an expectation for 2 years? Because this whole piece here is important. It's really a lot. It goes beyond textbooks and curriculum. There's, accountability for what things were purchased by revenue from our district, money from our district, as opposed to donated and given to show the cultural representation. So just keep us posted. But I'm wondering too if there's not some opportunity for some financial grants to help in this area.
Thank you. And also, some of the various grants also purchase some of these resources. So that's why we really need to make sure we are doing our due diligence to, sort things through and make sure they're properly coded and make sure we know where these resources are. Chair Derek Eater. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is really overwhelming, and we just need to open up a cultural center to store all these materials and, sacred items that we have.
Thank you. As I look at this recommendation, I noticed that, and I've heard as we've had this conversation talking about cultural items and artifacts, do we have a an inventory of what those cultural items or maybe those artifacts are? And are we in compliance with the the Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act? Do we know where we got some of those cultural items, if we should have them, if they need to be returned? That makes me a little nervous.
From what I saw, a lot of the sacred items were replicas, so they weren't, the authentic, actual sacred items. And if they were, from what I saw, they were given to a person to look after until they can be blessed by an elder and feasted. And by feasted, it's a ceremony that happens, that takes place.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we're giving the respect due to those cultural items, so thank you for that answer.
All right, thank you. Number 9. Just receiving regular reports related to academic outcomes for our Native students. So that's one of the primary roles of Sheila, is to continue to make sure there's opportunities for APAC to receive updated reports. She knows that she can tap our directors at any point in time to present information related to achievement data that we get from the state. Our directors will be available to present to our APAC outcomes that our Native students are having. Attendance data, she'll be able to have access and has access to that information. So her role is significant and important to make sure that APAC receives all that information, but she also can lean on all of our directors and coordinators who have access to data and have them present like they've been presenting here at the board meeting. Sheila, would you like to share anything?
Yes, I did receive the first part of the training for EduClimber, and I just have to work with it. I'm a hands-on learner, visual, so it'll take me some time, so I will have to count on the experts, of course, from the departments, to provide accurate data to APAC.
Number 10. The recommendation was that integration specialists intentionally support American Indian students as part of their caseloads. So as you see in the response that I have provided, that, I'm sure my numbers are off here. I'll go to the back, sorry about that. As I provided in the response, that our integration specialists, they are supported or funded by a different grant that is not connected to our American Indian grant itself. Nonetheless, our achievement and integration plan requires that the integration specialists support all students, especially marginalized students. And so there are numerous American Indian students who are being supported by integration specialists. And so it's pretty challenging to require that they only support American Indian students, because the grant itself requires them to support, African American students, other students as well, the grant itself. But as indicated, Sheila will work with myself right now, to make sure there is data. We have data on who our integration specialists support, and we're going to make sure that data is shared with Sheila, who can make sure that it is shared with our APAC. So they will know exactly how many students who are Native are being supported by integration specialists. Member Sanowski?
Ms. White, I'm wondering if you've, in APAC, have been able to have any conversations with our APAC members, just do they understand this response, or have they seen this response? And then, if so, how have those conversations gone? I mean, do they understand now that there's these other grant requirements?
I think, yeah, once they, see these responses, and I can give them some examples of how the integration specialists are working with our liaisons, on a weekly basis, day-to-day basis, whatever it might be. They are there to help at our events. We just recently had one at Ordine Middle School. It was a drumming demonstration, and the integration specialist was there to help in any way that she can. I am trying to meet with a lot more integration specialists. I'm meeting one at East this Thursday. So, I mean, it's it looks like baby steps, but it is a lot. And yeah, I'll do my best to share this with APAC.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And just make sure there's a point of clarification. APAC has not received this, as it's still in draft form, and so APAC is not aware of the initial responses unless they had attended a meeting or was aware of the posting on board book. So just making you aware that they have not been made aware of our initial responses.
Sounds good. Yeah, I kind of thought that, but I know that we received these recommendations, I think, last month or the month before, so I wasn't sure if there had been any.
Oh, just making sure. Yep, thank you. But just to let you know that when we did get those things, Sheila did a great job of work. Once the vote of non-concurrence was received, Sheila worked in partnership with our APAC to seek clarification, because some of the recommendations, we were wondering, what was behind it or what was the intent of those recommendations. So she was in communication with the APAC leadership to seek clarification, that then we took that understanding to develop these responses. Member Banks?
Thank you. Can you explain more what marginalized students are? I know what the definition is of that, but I want to know what group of students fit in that category, and how many integration specialists are within the district, throughout the district, and what is an estimated caseload?
I want to say there are 14 integration specialists. Their average caseload officially is 20, but many of them support more than 20 students. So officially they have 20 in their caseloads that they have to provide data around, but they support numerous, more students than what's on the actual caseload. And what was the first question?
Marginalized students, so does that include just Indigenous students and students of color, or does it include another group of students?
Not poor, low socioeconomic status.
Okay.
It could be students from low socioeconomic. So there are students of all stripes are being supported. Thank you. Number 11. So the request there was to just make sure that we are following the recommended MDE timeline and guidelines for communication with APAC and for receiving information. So again, as I've shared before, there's been a number of transitions that have occurred. There's been a lot of efforts to ensure that we were meeting timelines and providing data. There were a lot of meetings that occurred and happened over the year, even through the transition. And yet there's still concerns that have been shared by our APAC to meet those guidelines and to follow recommendations. So we're going to ensure, working together with Sheila, to really, again, partner with our APAC to determine what those agendas, those monthly agendas look like for the APAC, so they can identify data that they want at a certain time, information that they want to receive regarding either academic outcomes or suspensions or whatever data that our APAC is seeking. She's going to work in partnership to ensure that our coordinators, our directors, myself, whoever needs to be there is there to present that information. Sheila, you want to share something? I'll go to Superintendent Magus.
Yeah, I just started a couple months ago, and, I will try my hardest to provide the information, provide the deadlines, and, what they're asking here. It is a lot to kind of look at when we're dealing with the federal, provincial, and then the JOM as well. So, just need that organization, I guess, between the partnership to make sure that we meet deadlines, so.
Superintendent Magus?
Sure, I just wanted to reiterate the comment I made earlier that there are a couple of suggestions for some little language change in this area that I think that we've taken into account, and we'll be making that change before we finalize this. And thanks to Member Williams for your representation on the APEC group as our board member. I think that also, I think your experience within that program is a special additional asset that you bring to it, that lens and those relationships. And I think that making some changes, I think we're going to soften a couple things in that area, because we are focused on partnership, and we don't want any statements here to seem divisive.
Member Mikesell, and then Member Lawford.
When I was reviewing last year's non-concurrence and our responses, and over the course of that conversation, we referred to bringing our response forward to tribal consultation. And I wasn't sure if that just happened to fall right around the same time, and that's how we were able to have that opportunity, or if that's a requirement for this. And I was wondering if someone could shed some light on that.
Then it probably was just a timeline. We were really, really striving to have more meetings with with Fond du Lac. And so there were more meetings on the schedule, and we really want to make sure that they did have opportunity to hear all of the work that we are doing and how we are responding to the concurrence or non-concurrence. So it just happens to be the timeline, but we are really working right now. We're trying to identify an additional opportunity for consultation. So that's in the works now. Member Lawford?
Part of my questions have been answered along with all the conversation, but just, I appreciate the APAC parents bringing forward, their needs and what their expectations. I think in other years, I've never quite been sure exactly what APAC parents want as far as representation, how you get building permits, events, whether they're invited to different things going on. There's always an understanding that they're parents and they're volunteering to serve on these committees, and you never quite know exactly how extensive they want things from the district. So I really like them laying it out. So I think you can better, make that work for us. How often does our APAC parents meet? Is it once a month? Okay, once a month. And is it always the same? Is it always up here? I mean, it was rotating for a while when we were out of the central building, but now it's here?
Yeah, the meetings are typically held at Denfeld. They're
they
only
are.
required to meet 4 times a year. But we've been meeting monthly since what I've seen in the records.
That's correct. And there were several meetings held here, but then there was a decision to, as a recommendation from APAC, to start holding them more centrally located for access ability. So we started moving them to Denfeld and other locations.
Thank you.
Oh, member
Kind of a follow-up question to
Camp.
Member Lofold. I'm just wondering, is there, and again, you might not know this, but it's some onboarding, like, for example, Head Start does an onboarding once a year with their parent members, where they go over training and different things, and I'm just wondering, would that be helpful to help address some of the questions around, communication from our communications director, and how to access or arrange for meeting space or things like that? Is there any kind of onboarding that happens? And maybe that would just be one consistent way that some of these questions might be helpful, and so some feedback maybe if it's not happening.
Anthony, maybe you could answer that better than I could.
I was going to say I can start because there has been a true reliance on the coordinator to work with our parent committee. And so I know that in the past, there has been training provided through the coordinator for APAC. I think there was a question earlier, I don't think I answered it or didn't respond to it. There has been a leadership change in our parent group. So there's new leadership after voting, there's new leadership. So we have people who are families who are new to leading that committee. So that's why if you go to answer number or response to number 12, in there you'll see that MDE is actually going to be working with us to provide training for APAC, and we're hopeful that that will, again, empower them and working in collaboration with us to really have, very healthy and constructive dialogue and to build on the relationships and trust that they are seeking to have happen. And so that training will be happening in May, correct? And hopefully through that will, again, that's where we'll get some good understanding on, the things that they need and how we can better support them to make sure that they receive the information they want and that we're doing it in partnership together, because we want to make sure that they receive the information and the data that they are seeking and work in partnership with us. They want what's best. At the end of the day, they want what's best for their students and their kids, and we do too. Member Williams?
I guess this is kind of going along with what Member Loeffler asked, but maybe not. So I am curious how often, I'm sorry, I don't remember, how often the bylaws are reviewed for APAC. And then I would recommend, like, not as an official recommendation on this document, but just in general, recommend that maybe APAC utilize their district staff rep, Brenda, a bit more. I feel like, and I haven't heard her voice as often, and I know that she's been the staff rep for as long as I can remember. And so not that APAC shouldn't come to us with questions, obviously they should, because we were elected to be here, and so they should come to us with questions, but we do have staff members with you and with Gray and with Brenda who are working with them directly and have been, and not necessarily you, but have been around for a little bit longer and know the ins and outs of the department more. And so I'm just wondering how often APAC does reach out to the staff supports that are already in place.
So while you're thinking about that answer, I'll answer bylaws. Bylaws they were just recently updated, so they had not been updated for a while. And I'm going to, with best intention, assume that the coordinator in the past reviewed the bylaws annually, but they were just recently updated this year.
Can I jump in? Does the board, is that given to us as board members, or is that something we have to seek out? Or is it not even a thing that we need to consider as a board? The bylaws, I mean, access
No,
to the
the-
bylaws.
No, we can always share them. They're available online. And that's something that, as we continue to partner, we keep saying Sheila because that's her primary role, is to make sure as she's coming and presenting, if that's something that the board would like to see is the bylaws or have them shared, we can make sure the board receives them. But these bylaws are, APAC is a self-governed entity that it is on the committee itself to develop and approve their own bylaws because they're totally separate, so. But we can make sure that those bylaws are shared with the board in the future.
I just feel like if we had an understanding of them, we as a board, that might help with communication between our two entities. So that was just a thought.
Thank you. And do you want to respond to the second part of the question was, how often does the APAC reach out to other individuals besides you, Gray, and maybe,
Not besides them, well, maybe besides you as the coordinator, but for sure Gray and Brenda, because they are embedded within APAC automatically anyway.
Yeah, they do reach out to myself and Gray. Not 100% sure about Brenda, how that communication is going. But I can definitely, tell them at our, possibly the May training that we're having with MDE, make that suggestion to them.
I think I've already addressed number 12 a little bit. Just make sure there's fiscal, ethical responsibility and stewardship of the A&I funds. Did I say A&I? It's getting late. Our American Indian funds. So we've been working really, really hard. As already shared, I have sinuses, so I have a sinus cough going on. As we've shared earlier, that we believe in total fiscal transparency. Our APAC, our coordinators have met with Sheila. I'm looking at you, Simone, calling you Sheila. That's how late it's getting. Have met with Simone numerous times this year. We've made sure and provided them with lots of data related to finances. So we believe in total transparency, and we want to make sure that we are really using the dollars and the funding as indicated. So there's been lots of conversations to ensure that the resources that are being provided, that they're being spent or allocated in supporting American Indian students. So we have been working diligently on that, and as you see here, there's our response. Data has been provided to our APAC related to the fringe benefits and salaries that are being supported underneath the grant. They also receive not only from the grant, but also the positions that the district also funds. They know exactly how those positions are being funded. You have, board, you have access, not on this paper here, you have access to that in electronic format, and we can make sure that you have that. So there's a link that you can actually see the list of all our American Indian. You want to click on that link for me? Okay. We'll share it with you really quickly, but you also have access to it. Because the question at that point in time was, making sure that the resources that are being funded from our American Indian grant, that is actually being spent on American Indian staff, or, that program that support that staff. But as you'll see here, not only are we making sure that those funds are being spent for those staff, we also have more staff that the district is also providing resources for, or other grants are providing resources for. So this detailed information has already been given and shared with our parent advisory group. And I'll just point out, for example, can you scroll up for me a little bit? You'll see there, our homeschool liaison at Lincoln Park is actually being funded out of special education, not out of the grant, right? So when there's concerns, Is the district supporting our American Indian students beyond the grant itself? The answer is yes, we are. Member Meixel?
Thank you for this information, and I appreciate how you've spoken to the district attempt to be very transparent with the finances. I just want to honor the fact that if written in a recommendation asking for greater transparency, that the members of APAC who voted on this unanimously did not feel that they had that at one time. So just wanting to honor that position and hopeful that all of the work that we've done since receiving this is starting to meet their expectations. I would love some more information about the P card purchases and purchase orders and the concerns that they had around, or that the committee had around that, and seeing that the Minnesota Department of Education has made the recommendation that it's not necessary for our district to provide them with that information, if I could get some greater understanding around that subject.
So it was actually a couple members of APAC that asked MDE about sharing P cards and POs. And they said it's really outside, MDE said it's really outside of their advisory role, that, you know, that we don't need to provide that. I mean, we can, but they recommended we don't.
Thank you.
Member Chair Derek Eater?
Just to talk a little bit about the layers of accountability that go into district finance, school district finance, including the yearly audit that we have done by an outside partner. And my assumption is that they do look at the funds that we have and how those funds are spent at a very, very, very detailed level. That's the first, I mean, probably the last layer of accountability is that piece for our audit, correct?
Correct. The American Indian Ed program gets audited every year, but they did a single audit back in 2022.
Yeah.
And that means they go, it's an in-depth audit, and it's actually a separate document. We just got the ones that they did for the last, I'm sorry, I'm tired. Okay. They just did 3 single audits. I will be providing those to you at the next school board meeting. We just got them from our auditors. They were submitted to MDE. So yes, they're audited every year, plus every 2 to 3 years, they do a single audit.
So maybe that would be a helpful resource to provide for our American Indian Parent Advisory Group.
We've shared that.
That's great. And then my other assumption is there must be some accountability factors at the federal level when it comes to these funds outside of that audit that we pay. I can't remember who our auditor is. It's
Whipley.
Whipley, yeah, thank you. And so then I'm assuming the federal government also has checks in place to make sure that we're
That is what the single audit is. It's a
Okay.
federal audit
Okay.
done by our
Oh,
auditors.
done by, okay.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's submitted to the federal programmers.
Got it.
So-
Okay. Just so, it might be nice for that layer of transparency and our fiscal responsibility to especially reach out to our APAC group to provide that outside audit, to maybe give some,
On that note, oh, sorry.
assurances. Thank you. And then just so that we're all clear, if we were outside of compliance and use those funds in a way that we weren't supposed to, we would have an obligation to pay those funds back, and then it would also put future funding at risk.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I know Member Loeffler-Kemp might be on before me, but just on that related note, we have also requested an external audit by the Minnesota Department of Education's American Indian Education Group, just because we've tried to express clarity and transparency, and we figured let's just have an outside look at it, because there's absolutely nothing that we feel like we're trying to hide within our books, but you know, why not have an outside entity come and show that as well?
I would be hesitant to share those P card purchases at that level with just because that can lead to quite a bit of misunderstanding. So that would just be my suggestion in support of, I do think providing that level of detail probably is outside of the advisory role of APAC, especially when we can provide some of this more detailed work done by outside accountants and stuff. So, thank you.
Yep, agreed. And I'll add something to that because I appreciate what you just shared, Chair, because one of the things that was being requested is that there was an approval through APAC of the purchases. And again, that's why we sought guidance, which we understood would be out of the scope. And it is out of the scope of their role for advisory. But again, being fiscally transparent, if they would like to see that information, we have access to it, that we can make sure they have access to the information, but the approval, that's where it gets out of scope. Member Loeffler-Kemp?
This is just, I guess, a follow-up to what I was talking about earlier about onboarding, and this would be, again, a great example of just that training. And I'll be curious if that's part of the training at that May training on both role, but also, budget, that kind of thing. So if someone's making a list, that I would add this. Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to also add that I will be sharing the budget for the goals that we have in our education plan and how they match. So I'll be sharing that with them tomorrow night.
Number 13, Superintendent, one of the things that was brought up is, or recommended is, that the board have an appointment of an APAC delegate, reserved and invited to all school board meetings for opportunities for meaningful collaboration. And I know Superintendent and myself has had a lot of conversations related to that. And Superintendent, you want to share the response?
Yes. So basically, and I have actually added a comment there on the side, because there's actual state statute that talks about school boards need to have 6 or 7 elected members, that we can't just have people put on as additional members. It's also part of our governance and policy structure that we have, and so we need to follow through with that. With that being said, however, we do place great importance on the input of our American Indian Advisory Committee, and that's why we've been much more diligent about making sure that we have somebody that is a board member serving regularly on this, with Member Williams as the main person, and with Member Durek-Eater as the follow-up, or the backup, rather. And so that's how we want to make sure that we continue to have voice. I also think you could hypothetically look at having, sort of a other structure where you would have somebody regularly attend school board meetings or things like that, but then we also have many other groups in addition to the American Indian Advisory Group. When we think about our Special Education Advisory Group and other groups we have, we believe that the structure we have at this point is what we want to continue with, and we have to continue with it because of the state statute as well as the guidance from MSBA.
Thank you. And before I call on Chair Durek-Eater, that really shows exactly why I'm glad we're spending more time with this, because this is an example of a recommendation that came to us, and we know it's a recommendation that is desired, but then there's viability, right? And so this is where it gets tricky. This is not something that we can do, but we have another path for meaningful dialogue and meaningful participation with board membership being at the APAC meetings, right? But again, it's one of those situations where I'm hopeful that we can still figure out a way to, when it's time for concurrence, not concurrence, that at least we can show that we did our due diligence, we researched why we can't do it and explain to our APAC why we can't do this, but here's our plan moving forward for hopefully meaningful collaboration with board membership that will hopefully meet the needs that they were chasing here. Chair Durek-Eater.
I would also add that as Coordinator White is entrusted with the district to do this work, it is important that we have a coordinated effort through district administration, and we don't have, I don't want to say opportunities, we don't have a scattershot approach to how we do this, but we have a coordinated approach, and that we are all working within the structures of the district and the way it's set up. So I think that is an additional probably impediment to having not state statutes and governance structure as well, but also just the coordination of work and working within the structures that we currently have is very, very, very important.
Member Williams?
I think it might be useful or helpful or encouraging to add in our response that along with state statutes and the things that we are required to do as a board, our board meetings are public. So APAC members are welcome to come to any board meeting ever besides our closed sessions. And so if within APAC, they want to recognize who will come and sit at a board meeting and report back to APAC, this is what was talked about, they're welcome to do that. They can write it in their bylaws, like any of that, but we legally can't just give them a seat at the table, but that doesn't mean they're not invited to be at a meeting. And, we have our monthly listening sessions. If APAC wants to come every month and talk to us, they can absolutely do that because our meetings are public. And so I just want our response, I want to make it clear that the school board is available to APAC and not to shut it down that we're not, but we do still have to go the proper ways. So I think there's a way to communicate that.
Member Lawford Kemp and then Member Lawford.
I would just add, and I don't know if this has to be written in there, but it goes back to that onboarding. Again, I've kind of been thinking a lot about that our school board liaison, whoever that might be, or whoever is the alternate, they also are just that. They're a liaison. They're not a decision maker for the full board or spokesperson, but they're there to listen and then bring back and report. And so maybe part of that onboarding is what that role is and what it isn't as well.
And I'll just piggyback, yeah, because this is a fairly new, when I first read this and in my mind, I thought, no, we've had APAC representation before, but in actuality, it hasn't been official. I know that many of us have attended APAC parent meetings over the course of the time on the board. So I like that they, again, I'll go back to that other way I responded to another recommendation was we are seeing new parent involvement in APAC, and there's different asks and different needs, and so they asked for a school board rep. But I also will tell you that this came up at tribal consultation, and again, one of my really wonderful learning experience when I was board chair was to attend tribal consultation over the 5 years and really build a relationship with our leadership, which also changed on that last meeting we went to. The actual Fond du Lac leadership also changed. So we haven't gotten a chance to really build relationships with some of them. Some of them are returning. But I do remember having this conversation about a school board representation or the times when I've gone to APAC meetings in the past. They appreciated it, don't get me wrong, but I never got the feel that they wanted us there every month, that they had an agenda, they had a mission, and I always kind of got the feeling that, yeah, they appreciate our appearance because then they'd know we cared, but there were things they were going to discuss that maybe they wouldn't really want a school board member there. And that was brought up at tribal consultation in a private meeting after the meeting with one of the elders, is like cautioning us, like maybe only 4 times. You don't have to go every month, but maybe only 4 times a month because they need their meeting time. And that was coming from an elder that knows the process much better. We can go for what we've already established because that's what this group of parents seem to want. But then we also have to be ready to have them maybe share that, again, every other month, or again, our APAC meets every month, but not every APAC that is in our communities or in other school districts meet that often. So just some observations about being at the APAC meetings. And I'm ready to serve as an alternate if we have other commitments, but appreciate that too.
I appreciate that, because every month I know there is a committee report out or reporting out. And so it'd be good to start, hearing more and more about, what you heard and what was shared at the APEC meetings. Member Williams.
I just want to go back to what their recommendation is that APAC has a seat at our table. And so me going there, which we're not going to do because we can't, but so me going there is going above and beyond. So yeah, I do not have to go every single month, and I will only go as much as they want me to. Yeah, does that make sense? I wanted to make sure that we're understanding the point of number 13.
Okay, number 14 is related to providing additional opportunities for American Indian students' success in collaboration with APAC, the ACO, the 1854 Treaty Authority, and the local tribal urban Indian office. They're looking for us to provide additional opportunities for students to receive credits and be given seat time for participating in events in the community or volunteering in the community, to look for creative ways to give those students elective credits. And guess what? We found a way to actually do it. So you want to share that one?
I'm sorry, I checked out again. Can you just repeat?
I'll start. It's number 14.
Okay.
I'm talking about, and some of this you've heard earlier. So over the February break, we've thought about different ways to provide additional credit recovery opportunities and providing those at ACO or at different places at NYS. So that's one of the things. So we've already started the work of trying to figure out how do we get creative at providing more opportunities and, to, again, to recover some of those credits. But then we also have done some research and know there is a way through community education to provide students with an elective credit for service learning efforts. So if students are volunteering and have a project, there are ways for those students to earn an additional half a credit. And so we are already in the process of working through that. Cameron Jokey, who is one of the coordinators in community education, she has taken this project on to move it forward. And so we've already started conversations with Sheila and the principals to really, get this off the ground. So we're already underway with hopefully meeting this recommendation. Sheila.
Yeah, we're looking at different activities that the students are involved in. If they're involved in, helping planning our powwows, our school events that we're having in all the schools, as well as serving on the APAC. We have 2 students who represent the student body at our meetings, and they attend every single meeting. So we're looking at all those different, avenues of getting credit for them.
That all sounds wonderful. I'm noticing the last statement or sentence in this response. However, an outreach program providing an AEO/AALC teacher could be created for after-school credit support at ACO. That's not really a strategy if it just says could. Like, are we doing that? Or is it something that we're looking into and we'll have a report back in 6 months? Like, just wanting to get more, like, either we're going to do that or we're not going to do that if it's going to be included in our response.
We have started looking into that, but we came across other barriers to doing so. Make sure the person is certified, and there's other things that we have to navigate in order to make that happen. So we are considering it. So I guess maybe we'll change the verbiage to reflect that, we know where we are, because if it's a,
Assessing it as an option.
right, we are assessing it as an option, as well as duplicating our AOC/AO programming in a separate space other than where it's housed now. That's something definitely, in terms of viability, we don't see that's going to be possible to replicate, because there are, again, additional staff and supporting that in a different way. What does that look like? It's something we have thought about and considered since we got the recommendations, but viability, just don't see a path forward right now with that option. So I'm circling back to, again, I'm being redundant because I'm trying to figure out how do we make sure we communicate this in a way that our parents understand the rationale or the reason why we are saying we did look into it, we considered it, but it's not just viable. Like, how do we communicate that so that they feel like we are listening and we are, have been thoughtful in what they're asking? Because I'm hopeful that we can make concurrence, or that they still say, okay, at least the district really did due diligence to see if this is possible, or, and then they still would give us a vote of concurrence for that item. Member Banks?
So I have a quick question. Do you know if APAC has a relationship or a partnership with the American Indian Learning Resource Center at UMD at all? I think that would be a great partnership if they don't have that, for leadership and guidance and a whole bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah, they do have a list of partnerships that they would like us to work with. It's just finding the time to do that. We're also dealing with ACO's cuts. I'm meeting with one program tomorrow that was willing to help support our powwow at one of the middle schools in the city. So they've already told us about the cuts that are happening with the preschool program and the smudging program that they were providing our district with. So
Number 15? Oh, sorry, did I miss one? So what's being requested here is, in summary, is that we are very intentional on repairing the relationship between our American Indian Parent Advisory Committee and the district. There were some concerns raised regarding the status of that right now. So we have, as we've indicated, we have been working really, really hard. And I know Sheila has been putting in nights and weekends, and I want to give her praise. I know you can hear it in her voice as well, in terms of not just being late, but I know she's been working really hard to partner and to reach out to our parent leaders and to really work with them. We've been working really hard to connect with MDE, to partner with them, to look for guidance and assistance, because we truly want to have a great relationship with our new leaders of our parent committee. And again, I know that our parents really just want the best for their kids. We know for a fact, as a district, the outcomes for our American Indian students are not where they should be. And so their concerns and the recommendations should be really considered, and that's what we're spending this time doing. So I just know that Sheila has been working really hard to do this, and that's why one of the things we're doing is MD has agreed to provide the training, and so that training will be provided. Sheila has again been working in partnership with them, and we're going to continue to work in partnership with them. Superintendent Magus?
I would be remiss if I didn't again say Miigwech for everything that you've done, especially even nearly 4 hours into the meeting too, with answering every question. I think it's really important that it shows the board's dedication to making sure that this is addressed seriously. In addition to thanking you, I want to thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, because you too have worked really hard during the transition of several different coordinators. And I know that even though there have been some navigation of different challenges, you've come at it again and again with freshness and interest in bringing forward what's best for the students. And I know that you've put in many, many, many additional hours after school at various events for APEC, and your leadership is much appreciated as well.
Thank you. Member Meixel?
Yes, thank you to everyone. This is obviously a monumental task of making sure that we're meeting all the requirements. When I read this recommendation, and I read between the lines, I also want to thank our volunteer APAC members. As they pointed out, they're putting many hours into their volunteer positions as well. And, you know, the first sentence of this is they recommend restorative efforts be made by the district. And as I look at our response, I'm seeing a lot of information, because I do go on to show some concerns about transparency of funds and this and that. And we do a good job of laying out, you know, some correct information and definitions there. But in terms of restorative practices, which is, or efforts, you know, the only thing we see here is, which, no, I shouldn't say only, because it sounds like it was a very big deal to arrange, but having MD come up to do training with our committee. So again, I just want to be cognizant of the fact that they're making a very direct ask about repairing relationship, rebuilding trust, and making sure that we're honoring, you know, that request with more than just information that corrects the narrative. So I'll leave it at that.
No, and I appreciate that feedback, Member Meixel, because you're spot on, and we are hopeful that as part of the training, because of the dynamics that have existed, that we're hopeful that that training with MDE will be a reset for us, that will provide the space for conversations on the things that are desired. So we're hopeful that will come out of that. It will be some suggestions on other efforts that will be restorative in nature, but do it in a way that's constructive, and in a space where MD is there to help support and navigate that conversation with us, so that we can get from our families, what does that restorative conversation look like? Because I know we've been attempting to ask, you know, what would we like, you know, but it's a work in progress, and we're hopeful that that will be the opportunity for the reset.
And I should probably also add, when I make those comments, that it seems as though we're trying to be very thoughtful with all of our responses to this vote of non-concurrence, and that takes a whole team of people to do. And, you know, I appreciate everyone like coming to this, like, you know, from a place of wanting to do what's best for our kids, wanting to do what's best for our American Indian students, and just recognizing that that's where we're all coming from, that just from different lenses. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Member Sadowski, then I'll go to Member Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, Ms. White, I think your work, your presence, and your relationship building will be restorative in itself. We're just really glad that you're here. As I was listening to you tonight speak to a lot of the different comments, you know, you're still so new, and so you're still building those relationships and meeting different principals, different integration specialists, APEC members, building those connections between, you know, yourself and buildings, APEC. So I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that. I can tell that you're working really hard at that, and I really appreciate it. That's very restorative in itself. It really builds great communication pathways, and I think that's going to be really, really helpful. And then just acknowledging too, this is not a small school district. This is a new system with new policies, a huge organization, new people, new names. I just was kind of thinking about your position and all that you're doing, and the hard work that you're putting in, and just wanted to acknowledge all of that. And I'm excited to kind of be back here in a year and kind of see where we're at and hear about how all of the thoughtful work that we put into this document that we just went over, and then your work kind of meshes. So thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate, you know, your miigwech as well. And it's about communication. It's about learning from each other, and you know, and I see that with a lot of our workers here when we're talking about building or creating documents, you know, what can we include in there? How can we have that real understanding of each other, of Anishinaabe people, you know, and everybody else? How can we put that together in one document to make it more meaningful to everyone, that we're learning about this here, we're trying to move forward, and we will move forward. We have to, you know. We can't just put the brakes on and do our work here. We still have to move forward, keep those wheels going, keep the learning going, and focus on improving graduation rates, improving attendance, you know, making sure that our students have that learning going on constantly and have that you know, that belonging to wherever they are, wherever they're touching that land, you know.
I guess, yeah, I want to reiterate that I truly appreciate you and your presence and the work you've been doing, and I feel like we have held you so much longer here, so I hope that doesn't put a rift in our relationship. But I don't mean to move us backwards, but just to talk about that restorative relationship, I do want to go back to number 13, when I said to make sure that APAC knows that they are welcome to come to our meetings anytime. Just that restorative relationship should be reciprocal, and they should know that, like, we're not trying to, you know, like, we are open, and you can talk to us once a month and then talk to us throughout the month on personal levels with our email, whatever. Our information is out there. And so if they need a personal invitation to come to public school board meetings, this is me personally inviting APAC to come to school board meetings, because it is really important that APAC sees that we care about our Anishinaabe students, and we love them, and we want to see them succeed as much as they do. And if there's a way to bridge, like, sometimes Anishinaabe culture and bureaucracy are just directly at odds. They just are. And so we have to find a way to find middle ground, and I really hope that we can both keep those things in mind, that sometimes, but the values are still the same. Like, we still care about kids and want to see them succeed. So sometimes the means might seem at odds, but we have the same goal. So I hope that we can keep that communication open.
Okay, number 16, there was a recommendation to utilize the Indigenous Peoples Task Force for endorsement. Sheila, would you like to speak to this one, as well as a focus on the medicine gathering?
This is, the information about smudging is where the partnership we had with ACO, which they can't provide us with that anymore. And Doreen Aditi Skinaway has reached out to the task force as well, and they're willing to provide programming to, for our students, and any other classes that want, you know, that service as well. I'm not too sure how they have been hit with the cuts for their program yet. So we'll just have to wait to see when we do meet with them.
Member Bonds has stepped out, so I'm going to call on Chair Derek Eater right now. I also, I work at the College of St. Scholastica, and I know that we do have a medicine garden there as well, that's curated by our Native American Student Club, and then also our AVP of, I'm checking out right now too, but she's also an Anishinaabe woman, and we do have some of those resources available. So if that's a collaboration or a partnership, I'd be happy to help make that connection, and if that's something that you're interested in. And then lastly, before we sign off, I just, going through these 16 recommendations today, my first initial thought is, please stay with us. Coordinator White, like, this is not your task and your task alone. This is all of us lifting you up to do the good work and guiding us to lift up our kids and improve those graduation rates and make sure that our students are seen and feel seen and are in a system where they can be free to express their culture and live their authentic selves. So sometimes I get uncomfortable because I don't want it to seem like this is the entirety of this task is on you. It is on all of us. And I hope you have a very long and fruitful career with the Duluth Public School System, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that that happens. So please, thank you.
Miigwech.